Hello, I am Mr. Beat, and this is an episode of 10 Questions. Thank you for being here. I have another special guest this time, the special guest star. They are someone who probably has a lot in common with me because they also have taught social studies in the classroom. They are a teacher um, in Utah, the Salt Lake City area. I had the luxury of getting to hang out with him for a little while, a couple days when I was visiting Utah last, what was that, March? But who am I talking about? I'm talking about Mr. Terry. His channel is Mr. Terry History. He got his start mostly reacting, I think, to history videos and being a history teacher. He teaches all kinds of different subjects, but or he has, but especially world history, American history. There's a lot of history videos out there on YouTube, and his first videos, if you go back and watch, he's just basically saying, okay, here's what they got right, here's what they got wrong, and then he would add a lot more context. So it's similar. He has a similar channel to vlogging through history, I would say, but definitely he reacts to different videos often, and so you kind of, and also like his reactions are often very different from vlogging through histories. So, but I highly recommend his channel. We're going to have a great conversation tonight. He's come up with 10 questions, open-ended questions. I've come up with 10 questions that are open-ended, and we're going to ask him right now. So everyone, if you could please just tap your heads like this and give a warm welcome to Mr. Terry. There he goes.
Hey, everybody. Hey, thanks for having me.
We got to get the full backdrop. Yeah, the arcades back there. I love your setup. It's much better than mine.
It's just me in a nutshell. I got history stuff, still a gaming dork, retro stuff. It's just me.
Yeah, so maybe if you want to fill in the audience with, like, I know a lot of my viewers are already very familiar with you. They watch you. Sure. But for those few who are not familiar with your stuff or you as a person, yep. What did I miss? What would you like to add? Like, what do you tell people when they ask you what you do?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm still an active public high school teacher. I teach history, and right now I teach world history classes. If you are an AP student or know what that means, you might have just got a little pit in your stomach, but yes, I teach that. World history, I've taught U.S. history as well. Mostly right now, I just do world history stuff. But yeah, I've been teaching since about 2009, 2010. And yeah, you're right. Started my channel back it was right after school ended in 2019. And it was kind of a split idea. The first thing I was like, I want to get like AP lessons up. Just like what I would lecture pretty much in my classroom, and put that up for kids that aren't there. And then I don't know what it was around 2019. I don't know if that was like a big react time. It was the first time I started seeing reaction channels to stuff that wasn't just like music. People have been doing like music video reactions first. And by the way, all those lie. The people that are like first time hearing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
it's like, yeah. No, you've heard Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay. But anyway, the one that kind of hooked me into it was probably Bill Wirtz. So History of Japan, History of the World had just come out. History of the World came out the night before the AP World History exam, which was fantastic.
Really?
It did the night before for that year. And I had shown History of Japan. If you guys know History of Japan, great, funny Japan video. I always showed that, and they were always like, that was so cool. And I remember the night before, my students came in saying, he did a new video, and it was all of world history. He's like, it helped me pass. Anyway, it was the first time I saw people do reaction to history content. And it was pretty much just like regular people that were like, wow, this video is really cool. And there was specifically one kind of reactor that did reaction stuff to anything. His name's Devon Da Vinci, great reactor. And he, in his video, when he was watching that video, History of the World, I guess, at the end, he said, I wonder what a history teacher would think of this. And right when that happened, I was like,
Ding.
I'm one of those. I'm one of those. And I was like, I'm gonna do that. Now I didn't react to that video first or like on my channel because I'd already watched it a bunch of times. So it started with like oversimplifying that. But anyways, so the reaction stuff took off. I'm very much a product of I think of the algorithm. Something hit really hard when I made a video that was simply titled like history teacher reacts to oversimplified was the first one I did. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden it just like algorithm took it off and then rest is history, I guess. Then COVID hit that next school year or that next at the end of that year because that was 2019, and that gave I think a lot more eyes onto that stuff. And anyway, I've been doing both ever since. So
Yeah, there's others that do what you do as well. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head right now. I mean, I don't know them personally like I know you, but
mhm,
yeah, like I think it's sorely needed because there's just a lot of history content now on YouTube, more than I ever would have imagined, and so much of it is like not necessarily the most reliable. Like they don't list their
sure,
sources. You might like question if the accuracy of a lot of it.
sure,
So it's good to have folks like you out there, you and Chris vlogging through history like
yep,
constantly, especially with I would say they're called pop history
sure.
videos. Some people call my videos that as well. I'm not offended or anything. Like I get it because I try to make my videos for a broader audience. I try to just introduce your average person to a
I
new
think you're
thing.
like one level deeper than that. I think at least you're one
Oh,
level deeper than that in a good way.
I
Like
appreciate that.
one more academic level deeper.
Yeah, I got
Um,
at least I have like the piece of paper up there, the master's degree to kind of say, hey, look, I know my stuff a little bit, but yeah, and also I forgot you told me this in person actually,
yeah.
but the fact that we started teaching the same time. I student taught in 2009.
Yep, that
That's
was
when I
me.
first.
Yeah, I graduated. Yeah, that year, yeah, I did it. I graduated 2009 and got teaching job right after that. So,
That
yeah,
is, yeah, that was a tough time to find a teaching gig
I
in
got
Kansas.
it for one. I got it for one reason. So that was when probably where you were too. At least we were. There was pretty much a hiring freeze almost.
Yes.
Um, Classes were enormous at my school, at our school, and my job opening came up I think it was a week before the school year started because they were like, "All right, it's just
Yeah.
way too packed." And I only got in for one reason. I applied. And history, by the way, is next to PE, I believe the most certified teaching position. There are a lot of people that love their history buffs. A lot of people got history minors, and I don't remember. It was like 100 something people applied for my job. I got it for one reason, and that was I'm a basketball coach too. And that got my foot in the door because I contacted the basketball coach and I was like, "Hey, I'm applying for this job. I would want to join your staff. I've been coaching. I was coaching high school basketball at a different school during college." That's how I got in. Otherwise, I have no idea where my teaching career would have been. So,
Yeah, I started because I got a job because I was a tennis coach, an assistant tennis coach, and that the head coach got me was a big. I will forever be thankful, Tracy. Thank you for being my in. Like I only taught part time that first year because of the for the kids to have no clue what was going on at the time. It was the Great Recession, high unemployment, and we timed it perfectly. A lot of millennials timed it perfectly getting into the job market. Although this was a second career for me. I went back to school. Um, so anyway, let's not get into it because we have plenty to talk about. We have
oh
10
yeah.
questions. Again, we have come up with 10 questions that are open ended, and we have not told each other these questions ahead of time. And so, if you've seen an episode or listened to another episode,
Yep.
this is nothing new. I've done it's the same format, but also I wanted to say like I'm going to try to be better about, uh, if you have a super chat, you're actually spending money to try to get your question heard. Then I'm going to try to at least catch some of those as we go along. So after we get through each question, I'll pop at least one up on the screen. And starting with this one, but this one is not appropriate. But I'll show it anyway.
You wrote me an inappropriate question for the
They
first
want us to
question.
do strip presidential trivia.
That's in the premium content. That's
Yeah,
the.
find our Patreon and then we'll talk. Yeah. So thanks for the super chat. Yeah. So I'll get us started off. And I hopefully won't take all night because I know, although you're not, when do you have
I'm
to go
good.
back?
A week from tomorrow, so I'm good.
Okay. So you can
A
sleep in
week from tomorrow, I can stay up all night.
All right. Awesome. So put the banner up to keep us on track. The first question, I'll start us off as I typically do. I get this question all the time, so we're just going to get it out of the way now.
Good.
What advice would you give to an aspiring social studies teacher?
Awesome. So I tell this because I get that in like any live stream I ever get, and I love that people are interested in that. I think the first thing I have to do is remind people that go into teaching because you like teaching, not just because you like history. Your kids, and this may sound cynical, especially if you're going to be like, public history educator, they're not going to have the passion you are no matter how much you try. You have to like kids. You have to like kids and you have to like teaching, probably even more than your subject. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. It's not going to be very fun. So that's like the first thing I ask somebody is make sure you love kids and you love actually teaching more than the subject. That's the biggest thing.
Definitely.
It's a high turnover job. A lot of teachers don't make it to 3 years, maybe, half of them. And I think some of that's part of it. They have a very, I think, like utopian view of what teaching is like, that you're going to go in and just break the mold and make all these connections and everyone's going to be passionate with you. And it doesn't quite happen, unfortunately. Doesn't mean you can't do those things, but you have to prioritize being a good teacher and adult with kids more than anything else.
I just saw this comment by Juan, and I think that's so true. I remember when I first started teaching, he said, so many teachers hate kids but teach anyways. And this is actually surprisingly, well, I don't know if a lot of them do, but definitely some teachers, you can tell, like, I'm always like, why did you choose this profession?
Yeah.
Like, you have to love not just kids, but just every human being, like have empathy and understand that, especially a lot of kids that are the reason why they often act out is because of really crappy situations, usually at home,
Yep.
or traumatic experiences of the past. And, I think I never really had many behavior issues with, even when I was a substitute teacher for a little while in a pretty rough inner city school district. I didn't have too many behavior issues because I didn't go in there being like, all right, here's the way things are going to be. And, just sit down and shut up. I was actually just listen to them, and you try. And also I always add, if you want to make it in this profession, you have to be chill and learn to pick your battles. And, it doesn't mean you're not.
That's the big one. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Pick your battles. There's so many battles you're not going to win.
Yep.
You'll drive yourself crazy. So I never thought I'd have to be as patient as I've needed to be as a teacher. And maybe the hardest thing is not to take stuff personal. Like how you're saying, there's every kid that you have an issue with or has an issue has baggage to them. And so you can't take it personal, even if it feels like that. Maybe that'd be good for anybody in any position, any job. But
where you work with another human being. Yeah.
Just when you work with people and there's more to their life than you and your hour you're spending with those, that person, at least from a teacher perspective, that hour a day they spend with you. It's like you're a very actual small part of the big picture of their life.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the chat right now, or social media in general. Like, how many people just talk trash online, and if they knew the other person even a little bit about them, like saying, oh, you had somebody that you loved died recently, so maybe that's why you're being a jerk to me online right now. It has nothing to do with the fact that, and we all have bad days, we all have struggles. And I was just talking to Mrs. Beat about this, like the folks who constantly try to pretend like they're happy and everything's great all the time. They're like, put on this fake cheeriness. I think they should stop doing that. I think we should just be real with each other and tell each other, like, yeah, no, I'm having a bad day. If you just If I'm a little cranky with you today, this is the reason why. Be up
That would
front.
help. That would help so much with, again, something like an Instagram or something, and for young people too, because they just see these people they kind of look up to, and all they see is this whatever image they're putting online, which is something their life is great and it's perfect, and you do that, and then I'm sure people then will internalize that and be like, why isn't my life like that? And
Yes.
then they blame yourself and get depressed, and that's, I mean, a whole different thing. But yeah, I
Yeah.
wish people were more honest.
Yeah. You betcha. Uh, okay. Well, it's
Okay, my
your
turn.
turn.
Okay, good. Actually, has to do kind of with social media. So I feel like over the last couple years, or at least couple years, you've been a little bit more of a presence on social media. I see you like to reply to big accounts and those sort of things. And I love it when you respond with something historical. So my question is, what do you think is at least one of the biggest historical misconceptions that you think people weaponize for their own benefit, like on social media? They'll take something from history and use it incorrectly, like a historical event or something like that, and they're using it wrong.
Yeah. The two biggest examples that immediately come to mind, you might even be able to predict. The first is the lost cause mythology, which is uh, it's just basically a retelling of how the real causes, the supposed real causes of the American Civil War,
Sure.
saying it was more about states' rights and slavery was barely a part of it. It was a secondary issue more than the primary driving force behind the war. I used to fall for that crap when I was younger. Actually, as a young adult, I was in my 20s and I was still. I mean, I remember when I first started teaching, I still like couldn't fully you know, because that's how I was taught. I was taught when I was in high school a bunch of lost cause mythology, and I didn't even realize it until much later in life.
You were a lost causer.
I would say I was not full on, like
Sure.
but
You knew all the arguments,
I
the
do have an
talking
uncle
points.
that proudly wears a Confederate battle flag all over the place. He has a Confederate battle flag hat. One of the nicest guys I've ever known. But anyway, I made a video about that if you want to learn more about that.
Yeah.
So the lost cause is one, and the reason why people typically from the South do it um, is because it's they want to make their ancestors not look so evil.
Exactly.
But I think we need to get over that. I think the vast majority of our ancestors were pretty evil, and just like who cares? Like it's not us.
No.
Someday, future generations will look back on us and think we were evil. So just
Sure.
get over it.
I
You know?
like watching, Atunche videos, and he just rails on those guys. Like every video is railing basically on lost causers. But I forget in whatever video it was, he went on a just like ended the video as saying, like, you are not your ancestors. You do not carry your ancestors' sins. You do not, you are so stop trying to do that. Like you don't need to do that. You are not your ancestors. So I always like that.
Yeah, you bet. I even have a song called "All of My Ancestors Were Wrong." Uh, Here, I'll pull it up just so I can shamelessly promote it. Um,
Do it. It's no shame.
all of my ancestors are wrong. So
Let's hear a clip.
does it play? I don't know if I have my
There's a tab for it, but if yeah, whatever. Everyone else can check it out.
because I'm not wearing headphones.
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it.
Oh yeah, but I say the word genocide at the very first lyric. Here, I'll just let that
From
go in
the
the back.
album Trying to Escape the Bigotry.
Yeah. I actually made that. It wasn't bigotry on the right. It was bigotry on the left that I made. That I came up with that title. I found that people that were on the left end of the spectrum were just as bigoted
Sure.
as people on the right back then. I was, this was 2006 when this album came out. Anyway, back to your question, the
Yeah.
uh, the other thing that where you see the biggest misconceptions online, and I made a video about this as well, was the big switch, the party switch. You had basically, okay, so it is very complicated. Did you react to this video, or was that Chris that reacted to the video? I mean, I think it was
Was it the
Chris. It was about the party switch, about how Republican Party used to be the more left-leaning political party in American history, and now they're the more right-leaning political party.
Yeah, I don't think I did. I might have watched on my own, but yeah, anyway.
So yeah, and at some point it switched, but it was over a long process. As I say in the video, it kind of began in the 1930s with Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal, and then really it wasn't until the 1990s that you saw the kind of the switch kind of becoming a more permanent thing. Which, when I say permanent, I mean, shoot, that was only 30 some years ago. I even see the Republican Party right now is dramatically changing again. And some of it is actually, and I know this really like hurts people when I say this, some of the Republican Party, there's elements of the Republican Party that are actually moving to the left right now.
By the way, that's going to be one of my questions later.
Okay,
we'll get some depth. I do want to talk about party switching, but as far as like in the right now, like modern time. But anyway.
Okay, I'll stop on that. But yeah, just to summarize, yeah, it's so sad to see people who are they're Republicans, they're proud Republicans, and they're like, well, Republicans we're the party that ended slavery. Democrats had slavery. I'm like, oh my gosh, did you really? And they proudly say this crap. I'm like, okay,
yes,
I guess it doesn't, like, history doesn't matter. Like, I guess we're still living in the year 1867 right now. It's so bizarre to me that, yeah, those are the two big ones. What about any other ones that you can think of? The biggest misconceptions?
One I always cringe at is 9 out of 10 times the fill in the blank in this sentence I feel like is going to be wrong. And it's this: the founding fathers would have said blank. and it doesn't matter what like you are or what you believe. I feel like that blank part is probably going to be wrong, because people think that they all just like were on the same page. They all believed in these same things. They thought like we do in 2024. But no, it was actually the big thing is they compromise. They compromise a spectrum of different beliefs. And that's what you see. And just because something came of it didn't mean they all agreed upon it. Like we talk about in a US history class or something, how like nobody was happy with the Constitution, essentially. Like everybody that was not fully, it's like everybody had to give up something. But yeah, that's the thing. When anyone tries to speak for the founding fathers.
Well, that's why we spend, as history teachers, we spend so much time on both the Three-Fifths Compromise and Great Compromise, because without those two things, there's no Constitution. And yeah, if to be in that room, the Constitutional Convention, that small, very hot room, I assume, in the summer of 1787 in Philadelphia. Yeah, like Independence Hall. That you would have heard a lot of shouting. Probably, we just think of them like, oh, they were dignified and everything. Also, like,
no,
they probably were, like, we think that they were geniuses, but I think people generally are smarter these days. Like, I would rather listen to the great thinkers of today versus, I mean, people are always like, well, if you could go back in time and talk to any historical figure, who would it be? I'm like, well, most of them, I don't know if I would want to talk to them, or I'd want to hang, like, even my own ancestors. Like, go back to my earlier point. Would I want to go back and hang out with my ancient ancestors? I mean, I think a lot of them might be not the best people to hang out with. Like,
I guess it'd be interesting to just ask them, I don't know, just about like life and what they think, but not, I don't know if we need to ask them for like advice and stuff, but
it depends on how far back you go, I guess, too. Yeah, like if you're going back to the hunter-gatherer ancestors, I'm like, okay, like,
yeah, asking about science or something, but yeah.
I just think about Idiocracy in the future, like how, like how hostile they are to this guy because he's like, oh, you're smart. You're smart. They think they're like, he's making fun of them when he uses bigger words. And I think they would like think I was a freak. And they're like, who's this guy? I think he was. And I would be ostracized immediately. Like, sure. We got some super chats here. Thank you all. What's your thoughts about the UK riots right now? I have no idea about this. Do you have any?
I just heard about it. So apparently, there was like a killing or something, and some people were saying it was like Muslim immigrants, and then there was a big riot against a big riot towards those people, like in a neighborhood or something. But then I also heard something coming out saying, yeah, like it's saying it's a white right wing riot. But then I also heard something, maybe news came out that was actually like a white Christian kid that actually had hurt somebody. And anyways, it's one of these things.
So we don't really know much about it. I guess
I don't think so.
I could search it up here on Ground News, even though they're not sponsoring this stream. They should. Hey, Ground News, give me money.
Yeah, no kidding.
UK riots. See if it pops up.
I know the government came out and was like, we're not going to accept this. We're going to crack down on it. So, but I think it's a migrant hotel. There you go.
So far, we only have two sources reporting, and they both lean to the right. Daily Express and Swindon Advertiser. Never heard of that. Saying rioters have broken into a migrant hotel, set fire to cars, and launched missiles. Missiles. In the aftermath of the Southport, what's the Southport attack? Southport attack. I have not heard about that either.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, developing. Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay, this is one source that leans to the left. Southport knife attack, rioters attack, accommodation for asylum seekers, and following the knife attack in Southport, violent unrest continues to spread in Great Britain. So it looks like
150 arrests. Jeez.
Yeah. So this is in Germany.
Yeah, I think someone got stabbed, maybe to death or something. Then I thought I heard something that it actually was not some immigrant that had done it at all.
But they said it was.
But it got out that it was or something, and then there was just this reaction. But I don't know either way.
Oh, so a 17-year-old is considered a suspect according to police. He was born in Great Britain, but his parents are from Rwanda. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Okay, well, at least I know about this now. I can research it more later. All right.
But they show you, though, that because this would not be something you would probably be surprised to see in the U.S. or other countries. This kind of stuff is going on all over the place in the whole, I don't know, what do you want to call it, Western world or something like that. So, yeah,
kind of this like nativism, nationalism, xenophobia, reactionary, like a shrinking middle class and a disappearing safety net, and so people become more extreme, and so they need to scapegoat instead of just they can't really go after the people in power, so let's just go after the most vulnerable, scapegoat against the immigrants. Usually are easy scapegoats. Yep. Are you P Dog? I'm sorry, are you B Dog or T Dizzle here? Which one is which?
Well, you're B Dog. You've got to be B Dog. I'm T Dizzle.
Oh God! Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm T Dizzle. This is our. Did you forget about our rap duo, like Kid and Play? Like,
of course. That's what we do on the side, right? We don't know them. Okay, I'll get back to the questions here. Thanks for the super chats, everyone. Okay, and this will probably not be a good segue, but that's okay. Yeah, I think since we were talking about like current events just now, I'll go ahead and ask this question. How will the 2020s be remembered in the year 2124? So 100 years from today.
100 years later. Interesting. Anything that far out, I think we need more than we're 4 years into that. 4 years into that time frame.
But a lot has happened already.
There's a lot has happened, and there's a lot that could happen. Like kids. I always find it kind of cool when my students will, like whatever, if something's going on major, they're like, is this going to be talked about in history class? I always think that's really cool. And biggest one I get is like with COVID, like, are we going to be talking about like COVID and stuff like are people going to be talking about that in history books? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what exactly they'll say, because we're going to have these different types of interpretations, but like, yeah, we may not know yet, but yeah, absolutely. So like, for example, I wonder in 100 years, I want to know, for example, what's going to be our reaction to the next pandemic whenever that comes, because history's kind of showing it's about every 100 years, right? So like, so with like the one we had now, my estimate is people are not going to take it as serious, because there's a lot of people that have like mistrusted everything that came out with vaccines and mandates and all that stuff. So like, will this be the era where there's more distrust of government, I don't know, policy, like that, like this was kind of like that, kind of like how the 60s were maybe with Vietnam, and how people came to distrust things more. I think that's a big one. I think also, if they're going to talk about this, whatever impact we're going to have from social media is going to be talked about in 100 years, because this is kind of when I feel like right now 2020 is when everybody pretty much of all ages, so I think now the boomers are now on social media. They found social media now. They're on it. And I think I could write a whole essay about how that's affected like political beliefs, because like the boomers finally got into uh and never, I don't think, understand like what algorithm based advertising is, and all the stuff that they're seeing in their brand new Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts, thinking that's reality when it's actually designed to put you inside of an echo chamber and then you radicalize your beliefs. So like, maybe I think that will be something that will be talked about. So yeah, I think again in 100 years we'll talk about both those things. Also, I think depending on like environmentally how we're doing in 100 years too, it might be something that gets talked about of like, was this the era where like something had to happen, where major changes had to happen? And hopefully in 100 years we're like, yeah, the we saw that there was all these environmental issues, and around 2020, and countries started working together to uh, help environmental things. That's what I hope. But again, I feel like since we're only 4 years in, there's like we could go the total opposite way. In 100 years can be like, there could be like, 100 years ago they were idiots. They had this easy plan and things still could have been fixed when it came to all these things, but they screwed it up. So I don't know.
Do you think we're living in a dark time period right now? Are you more, or are you less
No,
cynical?
no, I don't think so. I just think it's portrayed that way. But I still think if I went outside right now, I could still be safe, and I could talk to my neighbors, and we could have good discussions, and I don't need to go outside and fear for my life and think that everyone's out to get me, and I can't have cordial relationships like um Shane Gillis. You know Shane Gillis is the
The
comedian?
comedian.
Yes.
Yeah, I
You
love
know,
I love Shane Gillis.
okay, I love him. And he had something that it honestly like stuck with me. He said, like how everyone says this is like the most divisive, we're so divided right now. This is the most divisive time ever. And he's like, are you sure? We had a civil war, right? Like
Yeah,
we
I've
had a
seen that.
civil war. And that was by people that did not interact with each other. It was in his
Yes.
profanity way. He's like, what? Some guy in the North got a newspaper from events that happened 2 months ago and was like, wait, what's the South saying? They're talking crap. All right, I'm gonna go get my gun and leave my family and go kill them. Like, you know, it's like it's not as dark as I think people seem. I actually think there's a lot of really good things happening.
Yeah, I always tell people that ask about that question, like, do you think it's like we're going to have another civil war? And I
Yeah.
say, well, when you go to the grocery store or the gym or the bank or wherever, are you noticing that like people aren't getting along, or like like are they like giving each other at the very least death stares, or like are there fist fights breaking out in the milk aisle? No, there's generally not. You said you feel safe going around. I know you're in Utah, which is like the
Sure.
safest state anyway. But
Yeah, yeah. My circumstances could
but
be different than a lot of other places, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
the streets of London. No, you kidding me? London is perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Like we see, like you said, we see the extremes, the sensationalism, because that's what corporate media, all media, social media focuses on because it gets attention. They want attention, so they're going to show you the most outrageous, uh, high arousal, emotion generating crap. So stuff that's going to get you angry, fired up, and so I think a lot of people, honestly, younger people, I don't know if you've talked to your students about this, but a lot of younger people I've talked to about social media have really changed their relationship with it. I mean, they've at this point, if you're 20, you've grown up with social media your whole life. And so it's almost like whatever, like it's kind of something that's like, I remember when I first got rid of cable TV? Like, yeah, because I assume you grew up on cable television, or like
Sure.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Once I even moved out of my my family house, I was like, wait, I don't even need that.
yeah, like, I mean,
I don't
there's
need
a
it at
certain point
all.
where when you become an adult, a lot of times that's when you decide I'm going to break free from something I've done my entire life. You're going to reevaluate a lot of things, especially like in your early 20s. I noticed I did that because especially as a young man, your brain is now finally fully developed.
Yeah.
So have you noticed that with some Gen Zers, is that
Yeah.
a lot of them are actually getting away from social media?
Yeah, a little bit. I think so. I think when it really comes down to it, I think they know that it's fake. I think they do. I actually think they understand that it's a fake reality
Yeah.
better than their parents do.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
they know for sure. They're like, they get that. But I think, and I honestly think a lot has changed since I started teaching from like 2009 to now. When I very first started teaching, it wasn't 15 years ago, it wasn't as much social media with the kids, not as much of the phones and all that stuff. I actually think my students are kinder to each other than I swear it was when I was in high school or even before. I feel they're actually nicer, they're more tolerant of things. There's like stuff I hear the way kids will act in, my high school or like a high school I teach at, or they'll say things that I swear years ago, whether it was when I was a kid or even earlier in teacher, like somebody would have ridiculed for them for that, like something, and they're actually just like, whatever, like I don't care, like you're acting kind of weird, yeah, but they don't really care. Like they're actually a lot better, I think.
I was just telling Mrs. Beat this as well, probably today or yesterday, that kids, by the time I left the classroom in 2021, like those kids were just nicer than the kids that, no offense to anyone I first taught back in 2009, 2010,
Hmm.
2011. But yeah, the kids each year got a little bit nicer, and it was a subtle thing. But I bet you talk to most teachers, they would say the same thing. I think what it is more than anything is we now all are so connected that we're so more in tune with each other. Not just with the fact that we're, the surveillance state, which is kind of a whole nother topic. We're all being spied on, whatever. We get it. But also because we're connected in so many ways that we weren't connected before, we are actually better now, at least thinking about, oh, how will others feel about what I put out there or how I present myself. And also, if I'm acting out in public, if I'm like, I was at a restaurant recently and this guy was just shouting, and I was just like, okay, this is less likely to happen these days. Stuff like this where this guy's just being obnoxious, because what can you do now that you couldn't do
Sure.
20 years ago?
Sure. There's somebody
You could
kind of,
film them. You could get
yeah.
your phone out and film them.
Oh wow,
I
yeah.
wasn't
Everyone's
forced. I was
accountable
asking.
for that. There's someone in your like chat that also was bringing up some interesting things of like we do have bad depression problems with youth and suicide and that sort of thing. So like how does that play into the same thing we're talking about? Well, those are things I'm talking about, like people on people, like kids on kids. There's still, and even maybe more so, kids internalizing a lot of issues. They're treating each other better, but they're not treating themselves very well. I think that's an issue because there are incredible amounts of suicide and those sort of things happening. But as far as people treating each other doing better, I don't know if that just means people are better at hiding things, especially young people hiding their problems. But anyway,
Yeah, there's a lot of research to back this up. There's more anxiety now
yeah,
among younger
there is.
people, and also there's a loneliness epidemic. So more people are lonely now, which
And
is
it's so
paradoxical.
fascinating because we're most connected. We're super
Right.
connected,
That's why it's a
but we're
paradox. Yeah.
actually lonelier. Yeah.
That's why I love Discord so much, because I feel like it's helped resolve at least a little bit of that, because so many people find their communities that way. And but you and I both have really awesome Discord servers. You're
Yeah.
on mine
I
sometimes.
have
Yeah,
yours on yours all the time.
check out our
Like,
Discord
I
server.
went in there right before this and said, "Everybody, come on!" So
Oh, that's why so many people showed up. Thank you.
we're a bunch. Yeah, we're they're crossing too. There's a lot of them that are both members of ours now and have the two
Yes.
communities, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're not a member of these, we're not selling anything. It's a free. These are
No,
free. Like, just it's like it's a community. It's what it, like the key to happiness is finding your purpose in a community. And if you don't have a community to begin with, like people are like, oh, people aren't going to church anymore as much. And you and I both have talked about our religious upbringing and all this, but the thing is, it's okay as long as you can find other communities. You got to find other communities to be a part of. So yeah, I get, and that's why also, like, if you're still with if you're super religious and everything, and like, I get it. I totally understand. Like you have people that are there for you. You want people that you can count on, not just like one friend or not just your parents or brother or sister. You want like a group, like that's always there for you.
It's part of our nature. We're social beings. So
yeah. All right, we're really going off on tangents.
I know. Is it my turn, or should we move?
Did you ask your second question yet?
No.
I don't think so. Okay, no. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Well, let's get to the one that I halted you on. When you came onto my stream last week, we were talking about this. Are we in the midst, and I guess we're always in the midst, but we're in a very accelerated maybe time where we're having another party switch. And what I mean by that is the platforms are changing. Like, anyway, go ahead and say whatever you were going to say earlier.
All right. If I talk too much, just tell me to shut up. But like, this is an exciting time. This is clearly, I think, beginning with the election of Donald Trump in 2016 and the rise of Bernie Sanders within the Democratic Party. He almost defeated Hillary Clinton in the primaries, and also in 2020, Joe Biden. The only reason why he was the nominee was because everyone ganged up against Bernie. And so you basically have this populist movement that's similar to what I saw happen. Well, I didn't see it personally. I wasn't alive back then, but in the 1880s and 1890s, it's a similar type of movement where you see coalitions of people in rural America, but also people in cities. And most people live in cities now or suburban areas. However, like when I say populism, remember, it's just generally this sentiment of anti-elitism or anti-establishment that means different things to different people. And that's why you still have factions. It's harder to form coalitions. But you saw like with the rise of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his third party movement this election, I think, is also a wing of that. But it's just all of these people that are just fed up with the two major political parties. Basically the Beltway, as they call it, the DC Beltway, the elites on the coast, who's going to have success in politics in the coming few years. I think it's going to be folks from the Midwest or from rural America, or people that at least pretend like they're from rural America, because they at least are somewhat more connected to ordinary people. And I think because of this shift, we're seeing already the Republican Party in the 9 years since Trump first became the sensation within the Republican Party. Look at how the Republican Party has dramatically changed. I mentioned this on your stream. Yeah. Yep. I wrote this down. I want to make sure I don't forget this.
Yeah, they've changed more than the Democrats have.
Definitely. Now, the Democratic Party has shifted too. Like that whole Dark Brandon meme was actually a reference to the fact that Joe Biden has sneakily went further and further to the left throughout his administration. Like a great example is getting marijuana to Schedule 3, or trying student loan forgiveness, passing climate change legislation, just generally more antitrust enforcement, stuff like that. But on the Republican side, this is why I say, like, they actually in some ways have leaned more to the left. Is a lot of Republicans now, especially younger Republicans, they're actually not just reactionary. They are for things like they want child tax credits. They want they are okay with a higher minimum wage. They want more tariffs. They want so you support American industries or American investment. They are more anti-war than they used to be. I think this goes back all the way to Ron Paul, but now Trump is. Was Trump actually anti-war? Probably not. If you actually look at what he did, the war on terrorism continued, as it had been. Actually, he escalated drone warfare, but that doesn't matter. It's the perception that, oh, he's anti-war. It's the rhetoric. And so that's what people want to hear. That is a huge shift because this is the Republican Party. Just think, not that long ago, Mitt Romney, the candidate in 2012. Before that, John McCain, George W. Bush. These were neoconservatives. These were they constantly defended, policing the entire world in the name of stopping terrorism. So those are just a few examples of how.
Yeah.
And so I think the Democratic Party is also realizing it a little bit. We'll see who they pick as the running mate for Kamala Harris, or who she chooses, because I think that's also going to be revealing is which direction they want to go. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I didn't really hear what you said.
No, yeah, I think the thing that opened my eyes to it, the biggest one, was on foreign policy, because look at now how the modern Republican Party, and especially and Trump, I think was a big part of this. They've all disavowed like George W. Bush.
Yep.
And you see George W. Bush, he now like campaigns for Barack Obama, and he's, they're wondering if he's going to come out and support like Kamala Harris or something. And Trump's I think he's always said like he was against the Iraq, or not the Iraq, I guess the Iraq war. Yeah. The Iraq
really
war.
wasn't, but yeah.
And yeah, but like at least he says like that was, and a lot of people have come around, and even someone even like my parents being conservative, who were all gung ho when that, 9/11 happens, and it's like, okay, we got to fix the world and we got to do that. But now have come and been like, all right, that war was propped up by a whole bunch of lies and this and that. And the most hardcore people that supported that have now come against that. And now I feel like, yeah, that's happening. It's been almost more anti-war. I'm seeing more now from maybe the Republicans about like, okay, stop supplying Ukraine. Like that's not our war. And it's the Democrats though that are like going in and wanting, more of that. And again, that's still very new, and I still think that's a big thing in the last, definitely since the George W. era. So that's the one, the foreign policy stuff like that, especially with war, that I think has opened my eyes to maybe seeing that we maybe are in another other party switch. And the other streamer is saying, wasn't it kind of saying about every 40 years, maybe it kind of shifts its platform. So I think both parties right now are still in the midst of trying to find what their new identity is going to be. It seems like the Republicans are maybe a little bit ahead of that as far as they're changing more. I think, like you were saying, the less of the foreign influence, maybe more a little isolationism potentially. But the Democrats, I don't know what their thing is going to be. Is it going to now have to be pushing more to the left? If the Republicans are going to start to be more to, you're saying, like higher minimum wages, I don't know what's going to happen with being more like pro-union. Is that going to happen? Because I think that seems also pretty divisive within the party as well. So like, what does the Republican Party do? Are they going to move left? Or are they going to move right?
No, I think that's kind of the, I mean, all right. What's actually happening is, and I know this is mind blowing. This doesn't sound right, but I want people to really think about this, like critically think about this. I know we think we're so divided on so many issues, but we've got to get out of that mindset. Most Americans agree on most issues. I'm going to say that again. Most Americans agree on most issues. And so you have, I think, actually, the parties are becoming more in common. What Republicans don't want to admit is that Joe Biden has the same border policy as Trump. He has the exact same. He also has the same economic policy. As far as tariffs, he kept Trump's tariffs in place. They both had the same policies as far as like how to handle the COVID-19 pandemic. Like a lot of the unions now, of course, Democratic Party has really like always been pro-union or whatever. But for many years though, they were kind of like it was just lip service. They weren't actually backing up with actions. Well, now the Republicans have seized on that. You notice at the Republican National Convention, there was it was the Teamsters that showed up to speak. Mm-hmm. That was unheard of, like in Republican National Conventions for decades. And so what I think is actually like the parties are actually kind of becoming more similar to each other in a more populist way. On the left, on the Democratic side, I mean, this is actually a question that we could answer too. Somebody asked, is Israel's conduct in Gaza a genocide? Well, there's a pretty big movement within the Democratic Party saying, hey, we should stop supporting Israel because they are committing a genocide on the Gaza Strip. And so, like, that is definitely like not the Biden policy. So I think that could also be the future of the Democratic Party is like this non-interventionism, especially when in terms of like supporting governments that are committing atrocities. What do you think?
Yeah. So this is another one where it's like, I feel like when this started, and what do I mean by started? Things didn't start on October 7th, but as far as the United States really trying to posture in this a lot more, I feel like Biden and the Democratic administration was kind of surprised that there would be as much pushback against what's going on. I feel like they went in, they're like, of course we're gonna fully support Israel and full in. And then I feel like even since then, like with October 7th and to now, they've changed their tone about it. Both Biden and Kamala Harris have changed it a lot. And I feel like
Yep.
they didn't know they just they just felt that everybody was all in on this. And that maybe is something new because generally speaking, when it's come to foreign intervention, we've seen this, we just talked about it. It's where it's like it's not a bipartisan issue. It's like everybody has agreed upon it with these sort of things. And now we're showing that that's not the case. And it actually is a lot more divisive. And we'll see what impact it has here on this upcoming election because they're literally talking about like with Kamala Harris, like get who's the governor for Michigan, the potential candidate or vice presidential candidate. What's her
Oh,
name?
for
Anyways,
Michigan, Gretchen
yeah,
Whitmer.
yeah, oh, yeah. So like with Gretchen and other places where there's actually a lot more like pro-Palestinian movement, they're actually talking about that as like a reason to appoint or to name the vice president because they think that could actually be like a deciding vote in swing states is
Yeah.
because it's become divisive between what do you do, what does the United States do if anything about this, and it's showing how divided now we are, and I don't know if
Well, within the
they
parties,
know what to do. Yeah.
within, but because it has been bipartisan for many years. The foreign policy of the last of my entire life has been bipartisan. Like first ending the Cold War, so like still keeping up with like doing whatever we can to take down the Soviet Union in the 80s. And then since then, it's been basically being the the neoconservative policy of trying to spread democracy around the world and uh,
Freedom.
basically quasi-imperialism, just not imperialism, but like having military bases around the world. And this was a Democratic and Republican thing,
Oh
but the
yeah.
division you're talking about is actually within the parties, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Democratic Party is very split on it now. Holy
yeah,
cow,
yeah.
because you have like that's one of the things they're talking about. Like they thought Shapiro would be just like maybe potentially like a shoe in, but then then there's people that are like, no, he's going to be totally pro Israel. So like they're divided on that.
Josh Shapiro,
On
the
this. Yeah,
governor
Josh
of
Shapiro
Pennsylvania. Yeah, he's
from
Jewish.
Pennsylvania.
And,
Yeah, and
yeah,
he's
very
Jewish, and
pro
I
Israel.
guess
Yeah.
I think had volunteered for the IDF before, and so they're like, there's a bunch of Democrats that are like, no, don't do that, like don't pick him. Literally, it's like a major thing. They want the Democratic Party a vice president that will reflect their values for what they think should happen with Israel and Palestine in
We
general.
never answered his question, Solar. Sorry. I don't know if it's a genocide. That's a tough
Uh,
word to use, but it's definitely. I would say I'm just giving my opinion. I think it's been um, horrific to see what's happened to Palestinians in Gaza. It's just. I think it's hard to like deny it, especially if you've seen a lot of the footage, like especially on TikTok that I have seen. It was so disturbing that I had to stop watching it, and I felt helpless. Like and that's why and then especially to see the dehumanization of Palestinians after October 7th. I understand why so many people, Israelis and Jewish people in general, like were you know talking in a way like, oh yeah, just bomb the crap out of them. I get where that comes from, but these are also like the vast majority of people in Gaza that have been hurt are just civilians. Like they're not Hamas. and conflating the two. I mean, all the people caught up in this, I think, it's just like, like say, oh, the United States military, it does some horrible atrocity, commits war crimes around the world. And so we're going to retaliate against the United States and just start indiscriminately bombing the United States. Well, if they do that, they're going to kill a lot of civilians. Like they could kill, they could accidentally bomb my parents' house. And then next thing you know, Mr. Beat's a terrorist because you killed my parents. So I want to kill you. You know what I mean? Like, so like this whole mentality, like this isn't a game. These are real people that are getting killed. I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, but
no, you're right. Because it's like, well, the question is Israel's conduct in Gaza genocide, whether it is or it isn't. It's like what is actually happening.
That's what matters.
Definitely feels like it to people, whether it's supposed to be or not. That's how
exactly.
You know what I mean? Whether it is or isn't, it sure looks like it to people affected by it.
Well put. And I better finally explain what I put on the screen here. I never what you were talking.
Oh, the cycle. We said
there's a
40
historian.
Years, whatever.
Yeah, there's a historian that I actually made a video about him once. His name is Arthur Schlesinger, and he was a left-leaning guy, but he came up with this this theory, not really theory, more like a hypothesis of like the fact that there's actually these phases of American history, and we've been in the Reagan era ever since, like basically up until Trump came along. Like it's been this whole neoliberal.
The Democratic Party left me, right?
Yeah.
That was what he said.
Well, but also like Bill Clinton was actually a fairly conservative dude.
Oh, yeah.
And so like the Democrats of the 90s and 2000s and, even recent years have been more leaning to the right, including Biden. And now that's shifting again. Like, so, yeah, I would say this, you could probably plug in 2015 in there to, I don't know what future historians are going to call the area, what we're living in, the cycle, but.
Yep.
This is related. Before we move on, I think this is a good question too. If Harris picks Walz, Walz is the governor of Minnesota. Yes,
right. He was a teacher.
Was a high school teacher, football coach. They won state. By the way, he was a principal, I believe, as well. So yeah, if he were to be vice president, the running mate, and if they do get elected, would he be the first teacher in the White House? And
no,
he would not be.
No, he would not.
Lyndon Johnson was a teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, he would not be, but I don't know. Maybe it's a bias. I'd love to have I think teachers can make great politicians because they see a different side of society. You get to see it from. I think teachers have a really good insight on society because school, in a lot of ways, is like a microcosm of society. Kids bring in what they hear from their parents. We get to see the issues because oftentimes schools are literally the final safety net for some kids literally being able to survive and not be homeless and have food and do all that stuff. So I think teachers actually and administrators have a very good insight on what's going on in society.
I think teachers suck. No, I'm kidding.
They don't give us homework.
I'm biased as well. I would say that most teachers actually have more empathy than your average citizen. Yes. Because like you said, they have come across all types of people, and you really form relationships with your students, and you get to know them, and you find out what they go through, and like, oh wow, that's crazy. Yep. All right, we'll move on here to the.
I think it's third round. I don't know if you want to read another question or
you want to go first this time?
Whatever. Let me see.
Yeah, you go first this time.
Okay, I'll go first. All right, can we talk law a little bit and Supreme Court? Okay. What do you think about that proposal from Biden about term limits for Supreme Court justices? Do you like the idea of that? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what was proposing was 18-year terms, and then a president would be able to appoint 2, I think, every term.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, but not necessarily that format. But what do you think about the idea of Supreme Court justices being in for life?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at it too closely or taken it too seriously because obviously it's not going to pass with the current congressional makeup. But like I've said before, I do think it's reasonable to have some kind of term limit for Supreme Court justices and make sure that it's still try to make it apolitical in terms of like, you stagger them, and so it's not like happening like with an election or something or right after an election. And 25 years, I'm okay with that. I know that's a long time, but it's better than shoot. Clarence Thomas has been on there for like 34 years or something
Do
ridiculous.
you know roughly what the average like term is? I guess you would say, what is it
Well, it's
for a
skewed
justice?
because back in
Yeah,
the day, yeah, in the 1700s, 1800s, there was a lot of justices who were in and out or just died younger.
yeah,
And so if you keep out all the justices before, I would say, World War II, it's grown to be more like, I would say, 15 to 20 years. Whereas if you include all of them, it's more like 10 year, like, because a lot, I mean, we've even had a justice that was only in there for like a few months, I think. And so it's like, but when the bottom line is, now we know that like if they get in there, especially if they're younger, they're probably going to be there for a long time. And that's why people freak out. One reason why people freak out about this, because somebody who's my age, they could live 60 more years. Who knows? And they could be, holy crap, 60 years on the Supreme Court. And so, yeah, that's the concern. Now, I'm more for term limits for members of Congress. I think that would make more sense than, although that's not perfect either, because
sure,
then you're just having lobbyists and like the bureaucrats have more power.
sure.
So,
Okay.
what's your opinion on that? Do you think there should be term limits?
It's so hard. Like, I don't feel like this was as much of an issue until you had one president be able to do in one term three,
Yeah.
three. Like, have we ever had that? Is that ever happened? Has anyone ever been able to do three in one term?
No, I don't
Other
think.
than other than like expanding the number of justices, but
Oh
like
yeah, I was gonna say, because
sure, but
like it
other
was
than that,
expanded when Lincoln was president. He did, and he was barely over a term. Something happened to him. But yeah, like that's the thing that's crazy. Also, during the Civil War, they expanded the size of the court,
yep,
and it's happened. It's gotten as big as
times.
12 or 11. I might be mixing. I need to read my own book. But it's also been as small as 6. And so we also, a lot of times, not all the justices are actually deciding. They're not even hearing all the oral arguments. They might
Yep,
recuse themselves, or they
don't
might
even
just
vote.
be sick or something. And so a lot of times, yeah, these we just always think 9 is this permanent static number, but no, I mean, I think FDR actually was onto something when they called it packing the court, and he really took a lot of heat for that. But when you go back and actually look at what he was proposing in his bill, it's like, oh, this actually isn't that controversial, because
Yeah.
it was meant to be like, yeah, like, and I think Biden probably leaned on that a little bit, and there's a lot of people that agreed with it. You notice that, like,
Hmm.
I was surprised how many people were like, yeah, because the Supreme Court's not supposed to be a political position, but it's turned
Yeah.
into that, it seems. Although it really has always been that way
Well,
ever since John Marshall,
it's like
the Chief Justice.
it's become political, especially when like presidents are campaigning on something that's going to require the Supreme Court to make a decision on. So if it's Roe v. Wade,
Yeah.
like that's going to be a major part of your plan, then all of a sudden it becomes very political. And we see what happened, right? Like with the three that came in, and when they were being vetted by Congress, I remember them saying that there's just super precedent for things like Roe v. Wade was one of those. It's
Yeah.
not going to be touched, and then all
Yep.
three, 6-3, right? So it's 6-3 is such a big number, and it's going to be hard to anything to be bipartisan, I guess, if we want to call that, in the Supreme Court now to get that many votes. But yeah, so it's because, again, it seems like more on paper, it seems like something being more democratic. Like if you were going to vote more or have term limits, and that seems more democratic. And or if you want to expand the Supreme Court even more, let's make it huge, make it 100. Let's get a Supreme Court justice from every state or something. You know what I mean? But then then you do, I guess, get into the checks and balances. And I'll just be honest, I need to think about it more. I have to think about it
Hmm.
more, to be honest, to if there, yeah, should be any change. But I did think it was interesting what Biden has proposed, even though it's obviously not going to get passed. But
Yeah, I think he was just like trying to make it more. This is something people are voting on again for the presidential election.
Yeah.
Also, so many people are voting for Kamala Harris now. Biden before, but now, I mean, they're just blindly voting Democrat because of the Supreme Court, because of
Yeah.
the Supreme Court kind of overturning a lot of what we assumed were strong precedents.
Well, and we talked about in that stream you came on. So with Roe v. Wade, it goes back to the states, but has any state done anything with it that's changed anything? That was
All this happened.
none of it,
Well,
right?
okay, actually, a lot's happened technically because a lot of states automatically changed their laws.
Sure, but
Um,
yeah,
but there's been referendums, like there was a referendum in my state, Kansas, that we actually rejected a stricter law that would have made it more difficult for abortions in Kansas. When I say the referendum, like I'm not sure how many people actually voted in it, but like
is it been quiet? It was
a lot of
quietly around the
Ohio as
board.
well is another state that did something, another referendum. Yeah, and so like I think
Nobody's
overall,
banned it or nobody's flipped on it, really, right? Maybe they
well,
just
there's
what
some.
have they?
Idaho has a pretty strict, I think,
Yeah,
law. Texas is kind of like there's even some lawsuit. I know that there's lawsuits that from people who wanted abortions who couldn't get them, and because they couldn't get them, they had health problems. Where they like their
yeah,
life was in danger, and so then they
sure,
turned around later and sued. And so yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of I haven't looked into it too deeply, but from what I hear, it's caused a lot of chaos with courts.
yeah,
Like the courts can't keep up with all of it.
yeah,
Um, but maybe that will settle down. I don't know. But yeah, it's a federalism, right, baby?
yeah,
Federalism.
mm,
We're seeing that's a weird thing now. That's like we definitely are living in a time where the states all kind of. It does feel like a bit like the 1840s and 1850s, where states have
more
more
state power.
dramatically different laws. Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
that's a wedge issue, though. That's the thing. Like I think slavery was something that was so pervasive in the South that it's hard to compare that to now. Like as far as like if somebody really wants an abortion, they're just going to go to another state. You
sure.
know.
Well, and then aren't some of the states trying to put legislation to like keep that from happening too? Like it's a crime if you go and get it somewhere else. Was it Texas or somebody was trying to do something like that? It's like
I wouldn't
not
be surprised.
enforceable or something, but somebody tried to stop some loophole like that, and I think it was like, I don't know, shot dead. Anyway, that's off the other one, off the question, but I think it's
Well,
back to you though.
yeah, it is back to me. Speaking of the law, I
Yeah,
don't know if you've heard, but there's been a lot of drama with Mr. Beast. Not to be
yeah,
confused with Mr. Beat, but
you were
have you
first.
heard? Have
You
you
were
heard about
first.
this?
Is it? I know about the one staffer that was transitioning. I heard that, but then is there
Oh,
something else even more like recent
yeah, even more. Yeah, so
within a
there's
day or
another
two?
viral video.
Yeah,
I'll,
what is
I'll,
it?
I'll pull
I've
up the
heard of
video.
him like having people digging up old streams and he sends the N word or something. Like,
Oh no, this is something
okay, is
different.
this something different? Okay.
It's about basically how he's broke the law, and so
Oh, okay. What law?
okay, here's the video. Let me just I'll put it up on the screen. But yeah,
Can't
so
can't make somebody.
before I ask you the
Yeah.
question, I want to just say like, oh, we're too small there.
I worked for Mr. B. He's a
Yeah,
fraud.
this video has nearly 10 million views in 11
11
days, and
days.
this is his only video. This is a person who used to work for Mr. Beast, and it's been
Okay.
confirmed. It's been verified by others. I don't know how long he actually worked for Mr. Beast, but he made this video, and it's basically just like it's like muckraking, modern muckraking.
Okay. Why is there like Russian subtitles?
He says the premise basically is that he exploits children through these giveaways because most of his audience is under 18,
Yep. Hmm.
and that he's actually broke the law in terms of lotteries and everything. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. But since you hadn't heard about this, maybe
Yeah,
it's a bad
explain the
question.
law. What law is he breaking?
So
Potentially.
the way that I'm gonna see if I can pull up the part he's talking about in the video because I watched this whole thing. So if whenever you have like a sweepstakes situation, here it is. A lottery is any. I'm going to pause it here so we can see. Is any scheme that contains all three of the following elements and is by definition illegal: one, distribution of a prize; two, determined by chance; and three, to a person who pays consideration. So paying to do something. This is why you can have stuff like this. A lot of times, though, like you notice if a commercial will say, "Oh, you could win this by buying this product." However, they say no purchase necessary to kind of get so that way it's not a lottery, so that way it's not illegal. But apparently, and this guy has shown examples of this, Mr. Beast has not done this, and so he's been breaking these laws for a long time.
So so kids are paying to get into these drawings, or
Yes.
get a prize like a free house, or the stuff that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are paying, so it's gambling. It's like doing the Powerball.
Even if it's indirectly, like you have to buy something like a T-shirt or whatever it is.
Man, I feel like that stuff goes on all the time, doesn't it? It's like,
that's what I was thinking.
Hey,
like
if you buy my T-shirt, you're gonna also be in a drawing for this kind of thing. Like, I just thought that if you were upfront with it, maybe that was okay. But
so
like,
yeah, a lot of YouTubers are probably breaking the law.
with any
It's
kind
kind
of
of
prize. Like, we just ended a flag making competition in my community, and the winner is there's gonna be prizes. I guess they didn't have to pay to get in though. They just had to submit art, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? So like,
yeah.
but if
If they
they
don't have to pay to get in, then that's fine. That's it. When they say no purchase necessary, that's literally what they do, that to cover their butts. Companies
what
do
about
that.
like a patrons only giveaway?
Well, here's another thing too. Number two, where it says determined by chance.
Yeah.
This guy in this video says a lot of times the winners, it was pretty clear they were not determined by chance. They were actually people that were friends with either Mr. Beast himself or part of the crew.
Oh,
So
really? Well, did he make
yeah,
follow-up videos though to like the winners, or was it all pretty quietly done? You know what I mean? Like, publicly, was it announced
it
who would
was.
win these?
Yeah, no, like a lot of this stuff would not have been known if it weren't for this guy like digging it up and or exposing it. And I wonder if he's going to face I wonder if there's going to be like a legal fight here, because this has clearly had an effect. I think this has had more of an effect than the other guy, or I'm sorry, gal. Weren't there allegations of we can't use that P word here, but and being inappropriate with children or something.
Right.
One of his staff
Yeah.
members. This is a whole separate thing. So
Okay.
he's had these two big scandals over the past couple of weeks.
Like,
Anyway, this is also a question by somebody I just found.
yeah, that's Chris Tyson. That's the staff member, right? That
Yeah, were the allegations of.
and it wasn't even the problem that he was like, transitioning. I think he was divorcing his wife, but it was that he was also in contact with minors, I think.
I don't know much about it, to be honest, but this is the other thing that really caught my attention, because this video kept showing up in my recommended, and I was like, well, yeah, obviously this affects me. What's crazy is that every time something happens like this with Mr. Beast, it has an effect on my channel, because I'm not even joking. Like, so many people have come across my channel because they've been looking for him, and they've stumbled upon my channel accidentally. It's nuts. I don't know what the actual number is, but I have to like.
Someone clicks on it. They're like, you know what? I do want to learn about Supreme Court cases, and I'll stick around. I don't know if it's the 9-year-old
saying that, but
if it's the 9-year-old that wanted to see them, what do they blow up cars or something? Well, I don't know. It does seem kind of tough. Now, it can definitely be like kind of sleazy. Like, let's say one thing that came to my mind: if they were picking the winners based off of who do you think would make the best content? Like, okay, they're gonna pick this winner, and they go and vetted the winner, and you saw the winner was like a homeless person, and they put in money for this, competition, and that would make great content of like, oh, we're gonna give this winner a new house, you know what I mean, rather than the suburban kid from Orange County, so that's where, it can be, I guess, a little sleazy that way. It does show though, like with Mr. Beast, I mean, the bigger you get, the more the stuff's going to happen. Like the more people, because I don't know how many people work for him now, but like you're going to have drama come up, but I don't know. I don't think it'll do anything like to him, because I think I did see when I was coming in here, just as someone said, like Mr. Beast is done, like he's going to be canceled and stuff.
I just
like,
tweeted yesterday, or maybe it was today. He gained 1 million subscribers in the past 3 days. Like as many subscribers as I have on my channel, it took me 13 years to get. He got in 3 days, and this is after these scandals.
Is
So I
it
think he's going
because
to be around. Wow, he's too powerful. You
yeah,
get
he's
to a point. This is
scandal
with
proof.
anybody in any field, by the way.
Scandal proof.
You become untouchable. Like, and you and I are not in this category yet. We are not. So just so you know, like we can definitely have our lives ruined, and but like you get to a certain point of power, I think you really kind of are immune to a lot of, and that's why I always laugh when I hear people like, "Oh no, we're going to cancel this celebrity." I think if you are a celebrity who's supposedly canceled, oftentimes that's bullcrap. You're not really canceled because people get over it, and you still make lots of money.
I think you can only be canceled if you're canceled by your own community.
Yes,
like no one outside of you can. Like they're not going to do that. Like, okay, it's their own people. Like the people that want to cancel them were never supporters, anyways. You can only be canceled by your own followers.
There's a part of this video I wanted to show you here. It's part of a SpongeBob episode. I'll put it up on the screen. This is
okay.
Like pretty interesting because like it describes what you just said in terms of if you have these close to a cult, like
he does actually give the stuff away, right? Like that's obviously one thing if you don't actually give it away.
So this you'll see like, okay, see, you can get the fans to turn against anyone who criticizes Mr. Beast. I mean, these are very loyal fans who think that Mr. Beast is like this god, and then all of a sudden they will turn like
they've been activated.
They've been activated to defend him. Yeah. So, and it's the same thing with like you say Donald Trump. He has a cult-like following. Many people say it's a cult. A lot of people are saying it's a cult, and so you basically any criticism, like the audience, not the audience, the fan base is so into it that they are like you have an army. You basically have an army that will go after you, and so I'm curious to see how this is all going to pan out with this guy because he's probably got a lot of threats already.
Wow. Well, if the thing is you can only be canceled by your own people, 10-year-olds don't care about that, like this stuff.
Yeah, they're not paying attention.
They don't care, so they're not going to care. So like, who's going to do that? So,
Mad Dog of Pittsburgh, thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm never going to give you up. I'm never going to let you down. Thanks for the kind words. And also, very serious question here from Ezra. Mr. B, you finally need to be honest with people. Do it jiggle when you fart? Obviously.
Answer it. Yeah. Just physics. It's physics.
And then, Mr. Terry, earlier you were mentioning the historical misconceptions that you get tired of seeing on social media.
Everyone's Hitler.
Yeah, Godwin's law. Oh, like it's all this guy's Hitler, or we're comparing everything to Nazi Germany. Yeah.
Like both literally Biden and Trump have each called each other fascist as well.
That's another word. That's why I made a video about that. It's like it's just a weaponized word. It's become meaningless
because all you know is that's bad. Like,
yeah.
So you don't have to really explain it because it's bad.
You don't have to critically think about it. I know I'm more right wing than y'all, but I'm glad you guys are educating and giving nuance to politics and history. Thank you so much. P.I. or P lowercase l. Thank you so much. If you could slip an 11th Amendment into the Bill of Rights, why not just the 28th Amendment to the Constitution? Let's just frame it that way, JP. But yeah, what would you add as an amendment to the Constitution?
that was my next question for you. Is
Oh crap! Well, let's just do that.
well, yeah, kind of what I'll add on to it because it's kind of the next question, anyways.
Okay.
Because I think it's mine, right? It was going to go on to the last one because so the Supreme Court thing we're saying would take it a new amendment, right, to change the Supreme Court term limit thing. But my question was going to be, do you think we'll see another amendment in your lifetime? And what do you think that could be? I don't know if that's exactly the question they asked. They said like, what would you want it to be? But like, what do you think could be a possible one in your lifetime? And the first part though was, do you think we'll see another amendment in your lifetime?
That's a great question. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we will. I think when the last time we had an amendment, for those wondering, was 1992. So before probably most of you were born, and that was actually that amendment, which said that you can't raise the salary of Congress while you're in Congress. It has to go into effect the next term after the next election. That actually was first proposed as one of the original 12 Bill of Rights.
Really?
And so that's before that, you have to go all the way back to the 1970s. And that was the amendment that made it so that you could be 18 to vote instead of 21 to vote federally in federal elections. So yeah, it's hard to change the Constitution. Just to remind everyone, this isn't on the test, but you need 2/3 of both houses or 3/4 of the states. It's a long, tedious process to amend the Constitution. There's usually lots of debate, but I'm still going to say it. I think we're going to see actually probably more than one amendment in the coming years. I think over the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see, dare I say, 2 or 3 amendments. And I think the first amendment we're going to see is going to be term limits for members of Congress.
That's what I was going to say.
Because it's bipartisan, yeah. Because a lot of people a lot of Republicans and Democrats seem to be on board with that. So yeah,
that's what I thought too. It is bipartisan. Although you're going to be a little bit more amped to vote for that, depending on what you think how much trust you have in your current political party. Like if you're like, oh, our party's kicking butt right now, then I don't want to change anything with that. But you have to find a time where both are, and again, in a huge majority just hate their own party, and then it could happen.
yeah.
So
Well, the good news is for that is that the majority of Americans identify as independent, unaffiliated, not with. So maybe that's a promising thing with that regard. What would you do? What would the amendment that you would like to see passed?
I do like. I think I like term limits too, but other than that, like that other question was more like something to go in the Bill of Rights. Oh my gosh. Another amendment, I don't know if we'd ever do something like abolishing certain taxes, like the property tax or something. Maybe it would be an amendment to repeal another amendment, like a prohibition kind of thing.
Repeal the income tax.
Yeah, repeal the income tax. Like, could that, oh man, I mean, obviously that would have crazy ripple effects of like our economy, but what if we could ever get to a bipartisanship so high where we become so anti-tax as a country that could happen? And selfishly, I mean, that sounds great. It's like I already bought the land, but it's like, but apparently the government still owns my land because even though I bought the plot, I still have to pay for it year after year.
Yeah,
So,
it's crazy.
Anyway, yeah,
Georgism. Google it. Okay,
Georgism. I've heard a little bit. Somebody gave me a yeah. Is that where it's taxed if you're making profit off it?
Yeah, it's like, well,
you're
just taxed on the value of the land itself, and so whatever you do to improve the land, like that's not tax. So like the incentive shifts to, oh, I got this land, I'm going to make the best of it, I'm going to develop it, I'm going to build a bunch of housing there so I can, and so that will solve the problem often with where you don't have development in areas that you should have development, and maybe the housing crisis. And I don't know. It's one solution among many proposed. As far as amending the Constitution, you don't have to amend the Constitution for that. But I would say something to end gerrymandering is what I would propose first. Yeah, like that's, I think, really hurt our country a lot.
So
yeah,
you said that would require Yeah, what would you write into that though to
Well,
end
I did make a
gerrymandering?
video about. I keep saying that. I made a video
Do it.
about.
That's your job. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, the let's see, what's the language I used? Let me just open up my script. But I have a certain language I use because I was like, oh, you do have to word it a certain way. Um, let's see. My proposed. Oh yeah, I released this on my birthday a few years ago. That's great. So the language for the gerrymandering one would be. I'll read this verbatim as I had it. Um, the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of political beliefs. So this is going to like target specifically uh, partisan gerrymandering because the Supreme Court has already ruled against racial gerrymandering, but partisan gerrymandering is
Politically.
actually completely legal. So
Interesting.
yeah.
I think hopefully we'd all love that. Well, actually, not all of us, because the gerrymandering, I mean, no, people generally say for the majority, it favors the Republican Party. I've heard some disagree, like some people say it's like the opposite, but
I mean, it's both, but the
yeah,
thing is, like, yeah, it just depends. I mean, the Republican Party has been much better at gerrymandering, I think, in recent years. However, if you look at Illinois, oh boy, like the Democratic Party has gotten a lot better since the last census. So yeah,
giving land more voting rights or whatever.
it's so messed up. Yeah. Okay, so it's my turn. Yeah,
Your
we're still in
turn.
the first question. I
You're in
want to.
the
All right.
bottom of the fourth inning here, I guess.
Yeah, we're at the hour and a half almost. So I was like, thinking, I knew this was going to happen. I knew we were going to have
Yeah,
we're going to talk too much to each other.
no.
Okay, what are your top 5 favorite things to teach about?
Nice, awesome. My favorite thing to teach is World War One,
Mm,
and it's not even like a selfish reason. It's because kids don't know it very well. They don't really they don't know, and it's fun to teach in the way that it's very like debatable. Like I do a whole day, a whole period, which is, for my school is about an hour 20 minutes, on just the causes, just like the causes, and
nice.
it's fun. I show them, the famous image. I don't know if you can pull up, the cartoon where all the people are pointing at each other, all the representatives of the different countries,
Yeah, I'll
they're all
pull it
pointing
up.
each other, and there's like the dead figure in the background, and it's like who did this? It's on a lot of tests. You might have seen it before. You can find it, but like I show this image, and if you find it, that will kind of work. I'm trying to think. Okay, so you see the green guy to the left, that one. I don't know if you can do a bigger one of that or something.
Oh,
That
wait.
that one you pulled up is great. I don't.
So this one is.
Crime of the Ages is what it's called, famously.
Oh,
That
okay.
image. If you can find a bigger one, I feel like a teacher right now.
Yeah, yeah.
We're a teacher right now. So what I like to do is I will, before I say anything on that day where we're talking first day of World War One, I will show this image and I'll say, all right, every one of these figures right here is pointing to who they think destroyed. And you see in the background the dead slain woman that represents the peace of Europe. Then you
Mm,
got that finger there, which is, I don't know, supposed to be like God or something, walks into the room and is like, hey, what killed the peace? And all the different countries here in Europe are pointing at each other. And I start the lesson with, okay, by the end of this lesson today, you guys will be able to explain how the feelings of every country here and why they're pointing at the person they're pointing at.
nice.
And it seems like it's overwhelming. They'll be like, "Wait, what?" Like, I have to, be able to explain why Serbia is pointing at Austria and Italy's folding their arms and doing all that. And it's fun though because at the end of the lesson they can do that. Like, I'll be like, all right, I'm going to bring it up. It's my last slide. I'm going to bring this image back up again. Who would like to explain and go through every single person in here and explain why they're pointed at that person? And usually somebody's like, yeah, I'll do it. And it's so rewarding to see that because they go into that not knowing anything about World War One. Or at least
Hmm.
they think they do. They think it was just World War Two, but just before. And because of how complicated it is, it's really interesting to them. and then they can make up kind of their own decision. I usually do like an essay question at the end that says, all right, who do you think is most responsible for World War I? And it's totally open-ended, and I love it
Yeah.
because you can make a case for everybody here, like pretty much doing something. And then it becomes interesting when you look at like the Treaty of Versailles and you have like the famous war guilt clause. Like, okay, do you see now why Germany was upset that, to them, this to Europe after the war, everybody would be pointing at Germany according to like, the Treaty of Versailles. Do you understand why Germany was so upset? Because it's like, remember at the beginning of that first lesson, did any of you say that if you had to give a percentage of blame, that it would go like fully to the Germans, or not even the Germans, but just the that whole alliance? Anyways, what I'm just trying to say is it gets kids really fascinated. So that is my favorite one to teach, because it also helps them explain why World War II happens. And I
I've
think they
never
make
seen this
a fun
cartoon.
point.
I'm embarrassed. I've never seen it. It's
No,
brilliant.
okay, maybe
I
it's
love
not
that.
super famous. It's like one you would definitely find on a DBQ, or at least something similar to it.
Yeah.
And it's great. And literally that will
Wonderful.
be like the question, like the essay. All I'll do is say, I could just put up the image and say, okay, go ahead and write why, just a paragraph each of why each country is pointing at the country they are, saying they started the war. And hopefully, as a teacher, if I've done a good job, they could write a paragraph for each one of these. Why is Belgium pissed at Germany? Why are Serbia and Austria the only ones that are like pointing at each other when everyone else is pointing at somebody that's pointing at somebody else?
Yeah.
So anyway,
You
that is
should
my
come.
first. That's my
Now you got to
favorite.
come visit me in Kansas City, the World War One museum. I've been there like 10 times. It's
Is it
amazing.
awesome?
Oh,
What does
I love it.
Kansas have from World War One?
I don't know how they initially got. I mean, it's actually the Missouri side, but yeah, like I
Oh,
don't know
okay,
how they
yeah.
got that museum there, but it's a
Did it say
treat.
was it in Kansas that like one of the first cases of the influenza broke out in the military camp? Was that in Kansas? I forget where that was.
It was Fort Riley over by Manhattan, Kansas. Yep, I used to
Do
live over
that. That
there.
was our role for killing 50 to 100 million people, or whatever. So, you said top three though, right? The other ones I won't
Top
go into
five,
much.
actually.
Top
Sorry.
five. Okay, I won't go into the detail I did for that one.
Okay.
Kids are fascinated by the Mongol Empire, so I like doing that. I do a day on the Mongol Empire. Kids have no idea; they haven't really heard about it, and even the other teachers in my like department, I'm known as like the Mongol guy, because I'm the one that will, like, it's in the curriculum, but will actually want to teach it, where so many other teachers just want to teach like more like Western history,
Yeah,
and but just how different they were. And it becomes fun because I totally show, I still show Crash Course World History, and with John Green, how he brings in the
classic.
Mongols every time, and
Yep.
it becomes fun. And then finally, when we get, because I'll show that for, I use it as a like a test review. So like, okay, we're going to be taking our quiz in 15 minutes. You guys can study your notes, and I'll play the review video for Crash Course. We're going to take the quiz in 15 minutes. So they watch it like all the time. And then it's fun that when you finally get to that time of the year where the Mongols show up, we get to talk about it and say, yep, well, why are we the exception? And I definitely tell all the dark stuff, and they find that fascinating. How many people are related to him? How many people did he kill? And it's honestly one of the things that I've, students after they're done taking my class will tell like the next year's teacher, like,
Really.
like they will say like, yeah, Mr. Cherry used to talk about the Mongols all the time. And I'll hear from another teacher, like, I can tell who's had you before.
And
To me, I'm like, I'm just actually teaching it. Nobody like seems to. And it's like one of those things where kids are going to be into it if you'll actually
right.
teach them how weird they were.
I highly recommend. I'm sure you're already familiar with Dan Carlin's Hardcore Histories
Yep.
episodes on the Mongols.
I haven't heard his Mongol ones though.
Oh yes, they're good.
Okay,
You probably
I've
already
not
know
heard
all the
those ones.
information though.
Well, I'm sure he always has much cooler stories too. So it hits everyone. Like the women, like the girls in the class think it's really gross and horrible what they did. The guys think it's like cool because they're like, other than the battle tactics. My military history nerds will love it because they're like how they changed all their stuff. Anyway, but that's number two. Okay, let's keep going. What else do I like to teach? And again, I'm thinking more world history because that's mostly what I teach now.
That's fine.
Cold War is very fun.
That's my
I
favorite.
find that the kids, you know what the kids really like hearing about the Cold War is all the nefarious stuff the United States was doing with the CIA and like all the coups.
I believe
Kids,
it.
I found out, love hearing about the dirt of our own country. They
Yep,
love it.
I
They
did when
love
I
it.
was young.
They love it.
Yeah.
They like it more than the juicing you up with patriotism. They think it's, I don't know. I mean, it's just when you're younger, you can be cynical like that, but yeah, they'll say it, and it just come to the point by the time they end of the Cold War, I can even tell the kids, like, okay, guess why the United States was supporting the Mujahideen in Afghanistan? And they can simply, without even saying it, say, because they weren't communists. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's it. All right, we can move on. It's like
That's
they already learned. Like you only had to have one quality for the US to support you, right? And that's not like that. So I find that they really do like that as well. Um, let's see. Unfortunately, in AP history, they took out the ancient stuff. So you actually start with the about the 1200s. In my regular world history classes, I do get to talk about the ancient stuff, which is still fun. But Greece and Rome are always fun to do. I know that's an easy answer. But I'm trying to think more specifically what I like teaching about those. I don't really know. But that's when one thing I like to teach with, let's say, Greece, actually Rome too, is there's something for like everybody that you could
Mhm.
like. So if you're not into history, what you may be into is like learning about the philosophy or learning about the art. And that's a time in every year I have where the kids pick their own topic to research. And I use that because I feel like, again, with Greece or Rome, there's something for everybody. You may not
Yeah.
even like history, but hey, you like arts, you like music, so I'm going to have you go research that, and then they'll think that's cool, and I have them make something. There's something for everyone. So I love that. So if you notice, the trend is the things I like to teach are the things the kids like learning about. So I think that just like, because I may be like, oh yeah, I don't know, like, what, you guys don't like the progressive era of American history? Like, are you kidding me? Um,
Well,
and
you
then,
just go get into the jungle. That's how I got
yes,
into it. All
you
the
know what the
disgusting stuff from the book.
you know what I would say actually, like, we talk like industrial revolution. I do think that I like teaching because they get into it. The just like how life was, like the hard stuff. So like talk about child labor. We'll do a thing on that. I used to have them do a presentation on child labor and look up the who's the famous photographer that did the book, How the Other People
Mine.
Live or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like have them go look up all that stuff and do something like that. So they like that because they can relate. Well, I tell them, you probably think you can relate to like
I
kids your
know.
age working, at that age in those dangerous conditions, but it actually is, you're actually pretty blessed.
Yes.
So I would say that with Industrial Revolution, and then I don't know if that was four or five. Five. I don't know. Give me add the fifth for me for you. What was something that I haven't said that you like teaching?
I also love teaching the Cold War, but yeah, Vietnam specifically.
Mm,
Just I think especially with the showing how, yeah, like once you kind of get into the fact that this is the first time when many Americans just stopped trusting in the government, and they were always so surprised, like, what, isn't it normal not to trust the government? Like, no, like before
no,
this, they're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's go fight communism. Yeah.
kids love that. I do miss teaching Vietnam and U.S. history class. We do it like in the context of world history, like as a brief. Okay, here are the hot spots, but like going into like the home front, I do miss teaching that because there were a lot of kids that, like, yeah, they heard about the Miley massacre or something like that, and get interested. Again, maybe it's just the kids love hearing the dirt and stuff and from their own
Yeah, did you
country.
hear the guy who, the only guy in prison, to William Cowley, he
He
passed away for
just that,
my
yeah,
leg.
the only one that and he didn't really get anything. Nothing really even happened. So he just lived the
Everybody
rest of his
else.
life. The only
Yeah.
one that got
Okay.
yeah.
Mrs. Beat texted me, says it's getting dark in here. It's getting dark outside. So I'm gonna
Okay.
get so while I get my other light over here, I'm going
Okay.
to post a couple of questions up here. And
Go for it.
uh if you don't, okay, this one's pretty good here. Emperor 277, thank you. They say, as of now, what would you guys consider the golden era of the United States? Personally, I say near the end of the Cold War. Go.
Okay. That's interesting. You know how a lot of people will be like, right after World War II, that was like the golden age. And usually I try to follow up that question with like, well, for who? For who? When
Yeah.
was it the most beneficial for all people? Because like, okay, was it 1954? Was it the Eisenhower administration? Yeah, a lot of people were benefiting. There was also a lot of people that it was still horrible. You're still at a time of segregation, for example, and like those sort of things. So when was it a golden age? And I guess you'd have to define, like, I bet each person has a different idea of what the golden age was. If I want to say it's the most amount of people were benefiting, he's saying the end of the Cold War. You know what? I could probably get behind that. I guess I would get behind that. At the end,
Yeah.
I mean, the United States is all propped up. Capitalism won. The Berlin Wall is fallen. McDonald's is in Moscow. Like, I guess you would say that was a better, a pretty good time that way, I guess. So I'll stick with that.
All right. I like it too. And I mean, I have nostalgia for that time.
We were
Since I was
kids.
a kid.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. The end of history, as historians temporarily called it, the end of the Cold War. I mean, the United States has been the only superpower ever since then. So, like you were saying, like, are you an American during this time? Because, like, I could tell you, it was not very fun living in Bosnia in the 1990s or Rwanda.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it depends on where you live.
I mean, you asked the golden age of the U.S. specifically, so I guess it would be, yeah.
Honestly, we might be living in it. Like, things have never
Yeah.
been better for most people, I would say, than they are right now. I know this is hard for people to hear that because it's like,
Can't afford a house. Like, yeah.
yeah, I have to live with my parents because I can't afford a house. But if you look at overall, I mean, obviously the three H's I always bring up are the big things now that have to be resolved if the middle class wants to grow again. The big three H's are housing, healthcare, higher education. You got to figure those three things out, or we're kind of screwed. Not just in the United States, but other countries as well.
Is that what you want to hear a presidential candidate just talk about? Would you say?
Yes, if it was me, yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, very few of them are talking about this.
Not like who's going in what bathroom or whatever, but like, hey, can we
Yeah.
talk about housing and healthcare and this?
Just stop talking about the culture war stuff. I mean, like, most of us don't really care about that stuff. All right. Thank you for all these super chats. Somebody said, do you think Nikki Haley is likely to be president? If you were to ask me this question a year ago, I would have said yes. But seeing the direction that the Republican Party has gone, and I know this could change after Trump is out of the picture, but I don't know anymore. I don't think it's actually as likely because she's kind of fallen out of favor with, I think even a lot of people that were supporters of her were not really Republicans anymore. They're actually going to end up voting for Kamala Harris now. Yeah. What do you think?
Do you think she would do better than Trump in this year?
I think, yeah, because she would get independent voters and some of those voters that, are never Trumpers.
If it was her Biden, I should say.
Definitely.
Because it probably depends. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was her and Biden, no doubt. And she even said this herself, like whichever party nominates the old man is going to lose. Whoever nominates somebody who's young and more exciting like herself is going to win. And so, yeah, I think the Republicans missed a big opportunity. We're really seeing that now that Kamala Harris is in the race. Like, I think a lot of them it was so weird to me to see like people freaking out about, oh, Biden can't drop out. It's too late. Were you kidding me? Like, are you new here? Have you learned? Did you not learn? Were you not paying attention in AP US history class?
Exactly. Well, I think now we found out that it was vote blue, whoever who, no matter who, rather than vote Biden or not vote kind of thing. I mean, look at the money. Did I just hear? Did she raise $310 million last month?
She
$310 million.
I think that surprised everyone because she's speaking of Barack Obama. She raised more money than Barack Obama did when he first ran in 2008, adjusted for inflation, which is insane because I remember 2008, people were very passionately excited about Barack Obama. And Barack Obama is here in the chat. So,
Hey,
I mean, we're kind of a big deal
president.
getting the former president in here. So they just have thoughts about, Mr. Beast promoting gambling to kids. So thank you for sharing that.
Is that what he means by gambling, like the sweepstakes thing, or is he?
Yeah, the lottery.
Okay, because there's like the streamers and stuff that on like literally do gambling online, but I don't know if he did that.
Oh, Connor says, search the video George W. Bush on immigration. It's amazing that this was the GOP fairly recently. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. How dramatically different the Republican Party is today, and that's not something I think that has leaned to the left. That's definitely further right. I think the Republican Party has gone further right when it comes to immigration for sure, because it's more.
Remember amnesty argument? You would never have that argument in the Republican Party now.
Ronald Reagan,
like Reagan, like Reagan,
yeah.
Like, okay, well, let's do this. Let's do a compromise. We're going to absolutely invest in locking up the border, but the other part of it is give amnesty to all the people that are here. I don't think that would be agreed to now. I don't know.
Do you think NATO is in danger?
Only if the United States leaves.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think eventually it's going to have to be like a world organization, and even Russia and China has to be in it, because the end game is World War III. Whenever you have a military alliance, like you're just like, you're egging it on. I get why people are scared that it's like, I mean, I'm sympathetic to those views saying that NATO actually is maybe done more harm than good. I mean, I mean, at one point, maybe it made sense, like in the 1940s,
well, till after Soviet Union collapsed, like that's a big argument, right? They shouldn't have disbanded then as a sign of as a sign of like grace towards the future relationships.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. That's cool. Okay, we'll get back to our questions here. I think we're halfway done not even halfway done. We're on the fifth question.
Fifth one. It's my turn, I think.
Yeah, you can.
Man, I don't know if I wanted to ask this question, because now I answer it differently. It was about the usefulness of political debates, and then immediately I'm like, well, look what it did to Biden. Let's put Biden aside in a way that obviously political debates we know can have an effect, but it wasn't in the way that I thought. Okay, it literally ruined his career. But putting aside that, what do you think about the usefulness of political debates, and what effect do you think they have? Again, other than someone that just can't spit out words and has to drop out of the race.
Well, unfortunately, they do have a big impact. And I say unfortunately because most Americans, most people don't really follow politics that closely. So this is one of the few times they kind of get an idea of like, oh, what are my choices? And, if anything, it gives the candidates a chance to at least somewhat signal what direction they would take the country in terms of policy and agenda and yada, yada. Now, I don't like debates generally because I think it's pure rhetoric. It's all about just winning no matter what. Even if you're not winning the argument, you still could be winning the debate. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if you're good at talking and you're good at like framing things and cherry picking data, using logical fallacies, then you could win a debate. And so also, if there's no fact checking, people fall for con artists all the time. That's actually one of my questions for you.
Do you think that should be mandatory, like live fact checking?
Well,
should there be some panel behind them? Do you think that should accompany every debate?
It'd be nice to do that. Yeah. Like I know there's that YouTube channel Jubilee that has been starting to do that now. Are you familiar with Jubilee? Have you ever
Jubilee, where they like it's two groups. They'll have two groups, right? They come in and they debate there. I didn't know they did like fact checking. I've seen that where it's like white liberals versus black conservatives or something. And
yeah. So but yeah, as far as like, I do think they still are important. Even today with, everybody's in their own little echo chamber for the most part, but this is one of the few things, kind of like the Olympics right now. Like everybody knows about the Olympics going on right now, which is incredible because we're all watching our own TV shows. We're all watching our own YouTube channels or our own TikTok feeds. We're in our little echo chambers, but at the same time, there's still a few events that can kind of draw everyone in that kind of crosses over and it permeates across all social media, which is, I think, a good thing.
Yeah, I love the
So,
Olympics. Everyone come together and root for the same people. You may get
yeah,
some debate, on like the opening ceremonies and like the conduct of that, but when it comes down
oh,
to the
I don't
comes
want to
down
get into
to
that.
everyone going for Simone Biles or something like that. So
Yeah, it's
anyway,
so funny how like none of us care about these sports until every 4 years we care
we
about
wouldn't watch it otherwise. If it didn't
that.
have a country attached to it, who's going to
Yep,
watch the whatever, So
curling,
yeah, see,
water
like no
polo.
one would ever watch that, but you got a country on you, and it's cool. So, but yeah, one last thing, but the political debates thing we talked
Oh
about
yeah,
some my stream, but do you think that debate will be a talking point as a major historical talking point? Like that
yes.
debate going down in history is um, something to know that it was a major event that changed this election.
I've already been outlining my script for my 2024 presidential election video. And I'm not sure if you're even aware of this, but I first got viewership outside of my own students from my presidential election series. Like that was the first thing that got me a bunch of subscribers and got me to the front page of Reddit and kind of like made me realize, oh, maybe I could do YouTube.
Yeah,
But I made a video of every single presidential election in American history. The series, I think I go back and watch the videos and they're kind of crappy audio, whatever. Like
yeah,
when I was still
cringe.
using iMovie uh, to edit videos. But regardless, like, yeah, after the 2020 election, I waited a couple of months. I waited till after January 6th. And then I kind of reflected and I was like, okay, we're still going to release this new video. I probably should have waited longer, but yeah, 2024 video, I'm definitely going to include the fact that Trump was the first major party candidate to be a convicted felon. I'm going to include the fact that someone tried to assassinate him. I'm going to include the fact that Joe Biden was very unpopular, and a big reason why he was unpopular was because he uh, what appeared to be going senile. I say this in the past tense as if he's not like still alive. But yeah, and then yes, the debate was where everybody saw it. When I say everybody, like, yeah, a lot of people really weren't paying that closely attention to it. Like normies, as I call them, people that aren't politically engaged that much. They're offline a lot of times when it comes to politics. They, for the first time, realized that, oh, there is legit cognitive decline with the president of the United States. I'm concerned. Maybe I should go with the orange guy. Again, even if he wasn't my favorite. So yeah, that, and then of course the fact that this is such a historic election, as we said in your stream. I mean, I gotta mention that this is just. I mean, even though a lot of people wanted it to happen, it is still a shock that the Democratic Party is just like, yeah, we're just gonna go with somebody else,
Pull the
like
plug in a matter
in
of
the
2 weeks.
final hour. Yeah. So I actually am kind of excited to make the video. I just hope that whatever the outcome is, that there's not another January 6th. That was a really dark day. That was something that, like, if you were to ask me my opinion on Donald Trump before January 6th, I would have been like, okay, he signed some good laws, but overall, I didn't like him as a person. I thought he had bad character, yada yada. He wouldn't be like, my view of him changed after January 6th. Like
Mm.
I felt like, I don't know. That really, I was teaching government at the time. What were you teaching when that was going down, when the Capitol was being invaded?
It's January 6th.
I will never
Yeah,
forget.
I had just got home. It was my lunch break because it happened in the morning. It was my lunch break
Oh
that
yeah, you're
day.
in Mountain
Yeah,
Time. Yeah,
I was teaching. So it happened at then. It was January 6th. So we're right after the holiday break. So um yeah.
the peaceful transfer of power is something we just took for granted until 2021, and I just feel like that is a fall of. Will a republic make it if you can't have a peaceful transfer of power? That could be it. If it's, again, like, like, it could be, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, say Kamala Harris loses the election, but she refuses to give up power. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, I am legit worried. And that's also, if you look at the comment section of the 2020 election video, there's still to this day like the election denialism is so so common, and I'm just like thinking like this is history now. Like this is like if you're a historian, like say you're a historian, you're writing a thesis, maybe you're even in grad school or something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to like just write my thesis about the the 2020 presidential election. You would go through all the evidence, just like a historian does. You would investigate everything, and now we have tons of footage to go through. We have tons of just multimedia in general. And do you think that that historian would reach the conclusion, no, I think Donald Trump did win the 2020 presidential election? Do you think a historian would?
They'd have to go under. You'd have to claim that there's all this evidence that is out there that has been hidden, and you have to confirm that it's hidden and that there was a national conspiracy, because you're talking about multiple states and things that
Yeah.
unless they have some other types of information to be able to pull out, then yeah, was it actually stolen? Then yeah, not that I would think of.
I
They would
mean,
be
the
able to
burden
do
of
that.
proof is on them. If you're going to make it a claim that it was stolen, you have to back it up with that's been what's been so disappointing to me. Smart people, really smart people, and I always ask for the evidence. And I'm like, I'm always so disappointed because I've got so many emails. You won't believe how many people emailed me, like because they know I'm the guy.
Oh, it's in your chat right now. It's like literally,
Make a presidential
yeah,
election video. I'm the guy. It's disheartening to
yeah.
realize that a lot of people just refuse to
Well,
accept
especially to the
reality.
extent, if you could find the extent of the evidence being that the election outcome would have changed. Like you always hear about little things, somehow somebody that was dead was voting or something like that, or I don't know,
Yeah.
mistaken identity or something like that. But if man, a historian, yeah, could bring all that out, then so be it. But
And
to
here's
put
another thing we know.
you're putting your career on the line, because just like with science, you're going to be peer reviewed, and someone's going to cross check you.
I know you don't want to offend people. You're trying to be very diplomatic right now, and I know
Sure.
I'm offending some people. But if Donald Trump accepted the results, do you think we would see all this denialism?
No,
No, we wouldn't. So that
no,
says everything you need to know right there.
I don't think so.
All he would have to do is say, okay, I concede. I congratulated Joe Biden on winning, and none of this would have happened. So that alone, I think, is something that we don't think enough about. And
Well, it
we're
was
trying
also
to
prime.
unite.
Remember how too the denialism didn't happen just after; it was leading up to it,
Yeah,
because
he
he
was
was
saying
talking
it
about
was
it
going to be
before.
rigged
Because
before. Yeah,
yeah, it was a not a traditional way of voting. We were in COVID; people were mailing in ballots, and it was already primed up for that before that, already putting in that in the heads of people, because he had already thought that that was very much a possible thing, and before the election happened, had already primed up people to believe that. So
I made a video about mail-in voting right before that election. The first time we had mail-in voting was the Civil War, so it wasn't anything new. What was new was the
still
hysteria
happens.
against
Yeah,
mail-in voting. Yeah,
still happens. I mean, you can still do it.
absentee voting. That's what it
Those
is.
the absentee voting, but they're going to start getting the mail-in ones, or the mail-out ones are going. They go way early, don't they? So
It depends on the
for me,
state. Like some states.
I got the mail-in vote. I remember right. I got the mail-in vote, but then I drove through and there was a drop off at the city hall. So like
Yeah.
that's kind of what I
Is
did.
it 3 weeks in Utah?
That sounds right.
I think it's
I don't
two
know the
weeks.
exact one, but I did it. I think I dropped it on election day. I'm one of those stupid ones that's like the day if I get the early one, like, what if I change my mind between now and 3 weeks? And that never happens. But like it's the
Yeah.
last day. I just like I don't want to. It sounds cocky or something. I don't know. I didn't give it the most possible time to think about it.
Okay. Well, I haven't even asked my fifth question. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
We'll move along here.
Oh no, this is fun.
I guess this is related to everything we've been talking about. Do
Okay.
you think con artists rule the world? Why or why not?
Con artist, cool. I think, do they rule the world? It's like, I almost think like there has to be an element to con artistry to get in the most influential positions in the world, either from like the business world or the political world. It's like there has to be an element of that for you to get
Yeah,
there. It sounds super cynical, but like if you were to go to every billionaire and look and somehow able to find all the detail, was there some type of conning or something going on? For politicians, it's easy. Everybody believes politicians are con artists because they promise things that they may or may not think they can actually do. They
right.
may or may not think they can actually do, and I guess they're still a con artist that way. So I think con artistry probably represents itself in probably the most, by far, most of the people that are really pulling the strings in this world.
Yeah, that
So like
sounds kind of
you
conspiratorial, doesn't it? Though.
have to almost probably because you almost because you have to. I don't know.
Well, and we're such a yeah, like a social species that we are easily persuaded. We think we're free thinkers. Like, no, I think for myself. I question things. You only question things that go against your preconceived notions, your beliefs you already have. That's the only time you question. Like, if I mean, I think what's healthier is to question people that you normally like. Question something you agree with.
Yep.
You should
Falsify your
constantly,
beliefs.
yeah, exactly. Like, and we just don't do that. Like, it's just more fun and easier. We believe what we want to believe. And so, like, I do think as a politician running for office, yeah, you're going to say stuff that you don't really mean. You're going to promise stuff that you're not going to follow through on. Although a lot of politicians, to be fair, do follow through. But even like ignore politicians. Like, I mean, think about how much we are bombarded by ads, by just constantly people trying to get our attention. Um, I just feel that's kind of the information age in a nutshell. That it seems like the ones who are able to trick us to paying attention to them, they're the ones that get the power.
Elon, Elon Musk. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he was
Like
onto something when he bought Twitter, huh?
it just his whole career, he's the one that came to mind. I made all these promises about, like the Cybertruck or something like that, and then that or the what was the tunnel like the and getting money for the
Boring
hyper
company.
tube or whatever it was called, like
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So anyway, yeah, I guess that was cynical of us to say, but nevertheless,
Well, it's good to be cynical in that regard, I think, because
yeah.
yeah, I think healthy distrust is I think needed when you're, especially when it's your own money. So many people have just like thrown away their life savings on things, expecting something in return and not getting it. Just so sad.
Yeah.
Myself included, by the way. I've fallen for so many con artists. I have to keep stressing that to people. Like, I still do. I still believe people, like, ah.
Yeah, are doing the right things, but are being truthful. Cool.
All right.
All right.
So we're on to the
Sixth inning. Yep.
sixth inning. Bam,
Yeah.
bam, 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 bam.
Just get some super chats.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me.
Sure.
I'm behind on these. Austria-Hungary was in a bad position in World War I. Their military was in horrible shape, and I think orders had to be given in multiple languages. I'm not that familiar with that particular fact.
They had a large. I mean, they had a very large army. They had one of the largest armies at that time, but they were in a bad. Austria was in a bad position where the military was in horrible shape. I think orders had to be given in multiple languages. I mean, it was a very diverse empire. That's one thing too, and that's one of the problems that happened with Austria-Hungary. So much of it started with them because they were a multi-ethnic empire ruled by what they felt was a foreign group, the Habsburgs. So unity for them was horrible, and obviously you saw it with Bosnia.
They call me Obama. Says I have a controversial. I think I meant to say controversial opinion. Woodrow Wilson is actually my favorite president, and I wrote a 12-page essay about it. Thoughts? I would just say that like he's not all bad. Even those like flying through history and cynical historian will
Cynical
say,
history.
okay,
I'm
well,
not as far on those guys as those guys on the Wilson stuff, but
Michael, thank you. So, why do you believe in history? You can't get 10 people to agree upon what happened last week, let alone 200 years ago. Great question. I made
good
a whole video
question.
about this. Like, how do you know what happened 200 years ago actually happened? What's your quick answer
Yeah.
to that?
You like everything, you scale your confidence in something based off the evidence. Um, I think as educators, history teachers, we should be priming our kids. That should be day one, is talking about, you guys learn about in science how you learn about scientific theories, you learn about laws, you learn about these things, and everything you always will say it's falsifiable. Like, okay, this is what we know so far, but that may change, and then we'll change what we think at every time. So we got to stop talking in absolutes uh,
Yes.
in on a lot of matters. Depends on the matter, of course, because certain things have more evidence towards them than not. So
Yeah, like gravity. That's a
everything's
pretty.
tentative.
All right.
Is it me?
Yeah, go
It's
ahead. Your
me.
turn.
Okay. All right. Now, okay. So this is gonna be a good one. So we hear a lot of crap about how education is right now bad. We hear a lot of crap. Educational system sucks, whatever. But what do you think education is doing right now?
Oh, I like
Because we
that.
hear about what are they doing bad, but what good is going on right now, you think? I mean, you're not that far out of the classroom, but you have kids that are in school. Like, what do you think is going well right now?
I am a defender of the Common Core standards that have been implemented in pretty much all around the United States. I'm not sure about outside of the United States, but basically more of an emphasis on skills as opposed to rote memorization is the way I try to summarize it. Where
Yep.
you have more emphasis on, comprehension, reading comprehension. I noticed that with my daughters for sure. Like, and also, they whenever they do an assignment, and even in elementary school, that it's they're looking, they're practicing higher order thinking. So it's always it's not just giving answers; it's explaining why. It's
Yep.
going. It's also looking at alternatives and explaining why that's wrong versus why that's right. So compare and contrast, analyzing sources. Oh, that's a big one that they do now that we did not do when I was in school growing up.
Sure.
I can't speak for everyone, but yeah, like so. I would say already. I think I hope anyway. I'm not. I can't. I haven't really confirmed this with very many, but I would hope that many college professors are noticing a shift in terms of students coming in now who, yeah, they're lonely and they have anxiety, but they're better at critically thinking.
I would hope so. I
Well,
think,
yeah,
yeah,
what
I
about
think
you?
too. I think especially in social studies, I think we're doing a better job now. I do think we're doing a better job because it has changed since you and I were high school students versus now. Like, I don't, I don't remember, yeah, doing anything that was like, hey, read these 7 documents, these 7 historical documents,
Right.
and then make an argument, like, based off of those. You know what I mean? Like you do for a DBQ or something like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's way better. And I understand though why things were the way they were, because teaching like that, where it's more critical thinking, reading, writing, it's a lot of work for a teacher.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work. You know what's really easy is a multiple choice test with 4 answers, and then writing those questions. If you I don't know if kids, students, people know actually how hard it is to write a test. It's hard. Like, it really is, to do the questions, do the answers, and what's really easy to do is just names, dates, and all that stuff. But again, it was pointless. So I don't know. I do feel like there's a good in education, especially with, well, I would say with most subjects. Um, Kind of the idea of mastery, of mastering things. Things have definitely changed. I know with like my colleagues in other departments, like with math, in some like math, it has made it harder. But it's like, hey, you're going to keep doing this thing until you get it, and once you get it, you're going to move on to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's good too. And then with history, it's been the biggest shift is to skills now. Like we do common assessments, like in our departments. but we
Mhm.
don't common assess content. We common assess skills. So like for us, we'll do like our first quarter goal, okay, for our social studies department is just to teach close reading. That's it. Close
Yeah.
reading. So read the thing and then answer a few questions. Okay. Next quarter, we're going to add to that. Now we're going to do maybe like compare and contrast. Okay. So now we're going to do a compare and contrast. And then by the end of the year, it's form arguments based off of like multiple documents. And I like that. I don't think the kids, the students are like, yes, this is so cool now. But I do think it's more important and it's much more of a life skill. So I do think the skills-based learning is something that I think education is getting better at and doing right at the moment.
And they have more opportunities to explore what they're more interested in with
Yep.
those skills. Yeah. So, I was a big proponent of PBLs, project based learning, where they're digging in deep on something they're more passionate about. Um, Although sometimes they didn't seem to be that passionate about anything, so you have to really kind of, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well, yeah,
my
your question.
my next question is this is a good segue. So why did your students who are previously not into history? So you've had students who were previously not into history. What was it that you can remember that got them into history? So think back on students you've had that were not
Oh,
into it, and then
sure.
yeah,
I would say making it relevant to them that it actually matters to them, where it's like, hey, guess what? Like, I know you weren't into history, but now do you see why like the world you live in is the way it is? So they make a connection with that and can not just think of people in the past as just people in the past that don't matter, but they're actually the same as you. They really are the same as you, and teaching them how similar you were has been. I think that's like a really cool thing to get them to conceptualize that way. The other one too, again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying back in like the project, like when I would do like a Rome project, but like finding something in history that everyone could identify something cool with. So again, you
right.
may not like history at all, but man, you're like a STEM kid. Like maybe you love STEM stuff, and all of a sudden they're interested in the Romans because we saw how cool like aqueducts are and like the engineering behind that, or painters or philosophers. You read something from Plato and you're like, whoa, they was philosophizing, have the same dilemmas as I do now. So I just think history has a good way of being able to touch the interests of kids, no matter what they are, and hopefully to do it in a way that's not, I don't want to say not boring, but like it's engaging. It's not like a high stress situation because hey, let's talk about open-ended questions. Let's do open-ended stuff where there's not really a right answer, but you could feel confident in saying it because like we were saying earlier, the one super chatter was saying, how can you even trust history? Where it's like, guess what? Your opinion is actually valid. You can have an argument in this where
Hmm.
say in math or something else, it's just here's what it is. And uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the history is
Yeah,
the
we do.
quickest way to learn anything, and so it's a shortcut for so many subject areas. That's what I think that's what attracted most history teachers into the profession to begin with, because like you generally, like history teachers, I noticed are I have noticed are just super curious people. Like they're always wanting to learn more, and
About
that is
lots of
the
different things too. Yeah.
yeah, generalists, as I found out. Professor Dave told me that's what we are, generalists, like trained.
Yeah, we
Uh,
know a little bit about everything, right?
yep, a little bit about everything. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I have a question related to your classroom from Storm Staunch. Mr. Terry, have you
Yeah.
ever had a new student in class who recognized you from YouTube?
So they didn't know going in that I was on YouTube, like, hey, you're the YouTube guy. I don't not probably not. I
Really?
know there are kids that I have coming into my class that I like say I have seen you on YouTube before. And some of them maybe like even took my class for it. But I will tell you this. I will say this, and I think I've heard you agree with this. Most kids don't give a crap about me
Yes,
being on YouTube. They don't
they
care.
don't.
I'm doing history stuff. You know what I mean? For most kids, if I was doing Mr. Beast or something, and even if I did tell them, oh yeah, I do YouTube, and most of them are like, oh cool, okay. what's my grade? You know, like, they don't care. Like, shut up and tell me my grade. So yeah, because some kids will come in, you know, like I'll talk. Maybe you get this too. You'll talk to people on Discord or something. They'll be like, "Oh man, that must be so cool! Like people, they like know who you are, and what is it? What is it like to have like these kids that know you're on YouTube and stuff? Like, what do your students think of you?" I'm like, guess what? It has not changed from when I was before. Like, I don't care. And also the idea of having some kind of social media presence is not like a big deal anymore. We have students in our schools that they're verified Instagram people or have 2 million people on TikTok or something. It's like it's not like a big deal anymore. So
Yeah, everybody's a Z-list celebrity these days.
yeah, and it's all, I don't talk about it. I'd never really talk about the like YouTube stuff in my class. They don't care.
Yeah, I think it was different for me because I would show them videos that I made, specifically made it for the curriculum for the class. I was like, this
Yeah,
is, and it was always like, but I think I told you this in person as well, but like the fact that, if they see you every day,
yeah,
there's that magic that's gone.
for sure. You're
Whereas
just
if
you're the teacher first. You're the
yeah.
teacher first. They will care about that. So cool. All right.
What another question here? Sorry.
Yeah.
At what point did you, as historians, which I had never really refer to myself as a historian, by the way, but yeah,
Yeah.
feel you have the authority and necessary knowledge to transition from students to history teachers. Great work, guys. Well, thank you, Green. I'll answer it first. I would say we have never made that transition. I'm not going to speak for all of us, but me, I have never made that transition. I feel like I'm still a student.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone's learning with me, along with me, and I'm just maybe a couple steps ahead. That's what I always feel like. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
there's just so much information; it's ridiculous. We are not history teachers are not encyclopedias. We
No,
can't just spit out historical facts, although sometimes we do, just because we're so familiar with it. But yeah,
sure.
what do you think?
Yeah. So question, Phil, you had the authority and necessary knowledge to transition students to history teachers. I mean, that's fine. It goes back to I think one of the first questions I asked was it's not necessarily about the history and um, the people that become history teachers. A lot of people do it because they had a good history teacher. They had somebody that
Hmm.
they just liked, and probably not on just because of their like knowledge level, because they loved their interaction. They loved, I guess, the teacher as a whole. So like necessary knowledge for sure. Like you don't have to be a history expert to actually teach a history class. You don't have to. Teaching, it's more important that you are a good teacher than you are some encyclopedic book. Some of the worst teachers I ever had were my college teachers. they
Yeah.
don't they don't know how to teach. They're
Yep.
the best teachers I've had my whole life are high school teachers, and there are a handful of college teachers I did have that are really good. They actually understood teaching. It wasn't just some boring dude reading off notes. So yeah. So I think it would be, I feel like I have more authority as being a good teacher than just somebody that knows history.
Yeah, we are communicators. That's what we
Yes.
try to specialize in. And yep. Well, this will be a good transition actually for my next question, if you don't mind. I think
Okay.
I'm going out of turn. I realize, but
That's fine.
yeah. So I have really, like the last year especially, I've really been reevaluating how I tell stories, because I realize that one of my hurdles to like having broader success on this platform or any platform is that sometimes I can be a little like in my own world, like, oh, this is something I want to watch. So everybody wants to watch it, right? So you're someone who, and I don't watch a lot of other history videos. I know that's weird, but that's what you
That's
do on
all I
your
do.
channel.
Literally
Yeah.
what I do. Yeah.
So I'm wanting to learn here. What has been the most impressive history video that you've reacted to on YouTube you've ever seen?
Most impressive.
I'm putting you on the spot.
So
Other
I
than
know.
my videos, of
Other than
course.
yours, I know, I know. Man, I love the ones that I can get to communicate to just like ordinary kids. I will say that's something Oversimplified's done incredibly. I
Right.
literally play his stuff in my class, and I get there's still some kids that aren't going to be as into it, but my channel was its popularity came from the oversimplified stuff. It really did, and I feel like that channel, for example, I got to look into more, but I feel like it did more to get into the mainstream than maybe any other channel had, as far as just getting people that don't really care. There's a lot of people that I don't know how many channels I've covered that have only watched my channel for Oversimplified, and they haven't gone into the deeper stuff that I've gone
Yeah.
into, stuff that isn't as flashy and funny and stuff like that. So the channels that can do that are is impressive, and that one's very impressive to do that, especially as he's gotten better at it and it became more comedic, that you are learning without even knowing you're learning, just because it's funny. I think that's really good. I think the most underrated of all the channels out there is Drawn of History. You know him,
Yeah.
Mr. Betts. Very
Mr.
close to
Betts. I'll look that up.
his. If you don't know Mr. Betts, his comedic writing and timing is fantastic. It's at for sure that oversimplified level,
Yep.
but it's actually it's deeper in content. It's the content is deeper. So if you want an oversimplified that is deeper than they are, this is your channel. And he's finally getting it's been slow, and I'm it's sad that some of like his channel doesn't do as well. I mean, it's still pretty well, but like it started off pretty slow. But I
Yeah.
always feel bad that he's got to do better. The illustrations are great. One of my favorite things to do is the voice acting. He did that, like voice act some of these characters is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've
But
done
his
some too.
writing and the information, he's a school teacher, by the way, as well. So he is out of New York City. So he's coming from that same thing, and he started doing the illustrations. He had his own, his other channel, which was pretty good too. Reminded me kind of like your old stuff. He did music, like funny history music videos, but
Mhm.
the content of this and the acting is absolutely incredible. It may not do as well in my regular history classes. Like oversimplified already is okay for that. It'd probably work in maybe like an AP class, but it goes really, 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 yeah, in depth, and it has more in depth topics too. It'll be like, the War of 1812 or something, and then it'll be like a whole half-hour thing. So, anyways, you got to get
And like
on
you
his.
said,
If you're not voice acting, he's like gone to. He always
no,
goes around.
yeah, I've been on a
You've
few
been
episodes.
on his, right?
Yeah.
I
Uh,
love when he drew you, right? Like drew you to make it
yeah.
look like you. I
I've
love
known
those. I
Tim
use
for a
those.
long time.
I
I
use
we
those as my avatars in different places because I think they're just so
Oh,
fun.
that's awesome. Yeah, we've collaborated many times over the years. Like I first reached out to him, and it was so weird too because our names are so similar, Mr.
Yeah.
Betts, Mr. Beat, and I reached out to him. I think first in like 2015 or something,
Okay. Yeah,
maybe
with his
even
old
earlier,
channel.
2014. Yeah, that's back when he was doing. Like we had that big thing in common. We would do parody songs, and I did
Yeah.
original songs too, and uh, so we collaborated with music
Look,
stuff,
he's got
but also
Mario. Look at that clip. That was so cool. Look, he just
yeah,
did there. Did you see that?
it's criminally underrated, as they say,
Yeah,
and
underrated channel.
I would say you mentioned this, the fact that he's an actual history teacher, no disrespect to oversimplified, but
Right.
he knows his stuff and he has the pedagogy background. Well, oversimplified, like, and I told you this before, but when I, or maybe I didn't tell you this,
Okay.
but they are very familiar with you, like, because I
Yeah.
got a chance to hang out with them a little bit, and yeah, like they just truly appreciate you for what they, because they, it goes both ways. I think, and I told Chris this vlogging history as well, but reaction channels kind of have a bad rap overall. But I said
Mhm.
when it comes to educational content reactions, I think that's a whole nother league. You can't even
I
because
hope so.
I mean, well, I mean, also like it's not like I mean, I get excited when you guys react to my video. I'm just
Yeah.
like, yes, okay,
I
good.
had that for the first time I did an original video, and like Chris reacted to one of my originals, and that like That made
Oh,
me so happy.
yeah, yeah.
That made
Yeah,
me
how
so
many
happy.
originals do you have?
I have like a half dozen. I'm still trying to figure out what my format is. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
I did one. It
This
was
is
just
something.
like it was like five mysteries from history, and like a short, less than 10-minute video. So like I did that, but I've also been doing like video essays. I did one on. I did a short video essay on vocational high schools, and like the thesis is like, here's how you fix public education. But I'm still trying to figure out what is it that I do best with that stuff, because it's hard. Man, the stuff you guys do is that do a lot more original stuff. It's amazing what you do, to be able to come up and write. Like I don't think I'm a very good writer and that kind of stuff. So I'm still trying to find my element with that. And but anyways, like he reacted to one of that. That was like that made me so happy.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was fun.
Have you thought about video games as a way in? Like, cause you like playing historical games,
Yeah, so I
especially?
do stream. Yeah, I do that. I do a lot of game streaming, and like um yeah, doing that. There's also a lot that like have been doing that. So like Assassin's Creed, I've streamed like every one of those games, and those are super fun. But then I'll have an idea for it, but then I'll go see that like Overly Sarcastic Productions did a video on the historical inaccuracies of Assassin's Creed something. You know what I mean? So I
That's
usually
a
the
great
thing is
channel too.
there's somebody out there, usually what I find doing whatever it is I would be doing better. And I don't I don't want to have to like compete with that. So I'm still trying to find out what my thing would is gonna be for that. I'm still trying to figure
Well,
that out.
just a preview here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still releasing that video. You probably wondered
Yes.
about the rise of the Mormon Church. It's coming out in a couple months, maybe a month and a half now. So, and you're in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. How's that?
I
You still got a lot to do on that?
the problem will be like trying to make it so that it's not longer than 30 minutes because
I
it's
know.
yeah. I I've been listening to that podcast ever since you made those suggestions.
Yes.
Yeah, so like
Oh yeah. To the like Mormon history ones, like that kind of
yes,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
then
Okay.
and then I would recommend other ones, and so
Yeah.
I sometimes have it on, when I'm in
Fascinating.
the car or something. But yeah, like so that's been a long. I think people have this weird idea that like, oh, I release a video almost every week, so like, what am I reading like a book every week or something or like no, like I'm actually making like 5 videos at the same time right now. I do a little bit here, a little bit there, and I haven't been releasing as much every week because yeah, I am trying to go a little bit deeper. That's the problem. Like I feel like it's so much of my videos are just introductions. Um, even if it's something I know a lot more about. I mean,
Sure.
so I'm trying to like go a little bit deeper, at least with some of these videos.
I think that's great. It is a little bit depressing at times when I do original stuff. It doesn't do as well as the reaction stuff. So it's like Chris vlogging through history, same issues. It's like, you put in all this work for something you researched and do it, but then
Yeah,
the reaction video. So eventually I still have to hitch my wagon to that, even though I want to do other things. And yeah, no,
the
you have the
game.
same thing. Like I loved your Oregon Trail, like with the Tesla. Like I thought that was so cool. But I know that was probably kind of sad that like with how much work you put into that it doesn't do as well, as the other things, right?
I lost money on it for sure.
So that's what I
I will
mean.
say, yeah, the Oregon Trail video. Upon reflection, I think I just made it too long. I think I should have shortened it. And plus, we realize, or we think that everybody like is into the same topics that we are, but a lot
Sure.
of people just couldn't care less about the Oregon Trail. That's really what it came down to, I think. So when you say like when you do original content, it is really important that you choose a
Yeah.
topic that everybody's searching anyway.
Yeah.
So that maybe that's something that's.
Something to think about. Chris was saying that like, walking through history saying the same thing, but I said like for him, especially for him, I said, keep doing it though, because I think that's one thing that's important is constantly making sure you have credibility. Like
Yeah.
as like I think the thing that's helped he and I be successful is there is a level of credibility, because at least we know what we're talking about. And maybe people aren't watching the original stuff. They like the reaction stuff. And that's what I've tried to tell me too, is like keep putting out original things, even just for credibility purposes.
Yeah, plus you're still teaching it in the classroom, so
Yes,
that's
and I don't
helps
have
your
that time.
credibility as well.
Yeah.
Um, Did you ask the seventh question already? Because
One, two,
I don't
three,
remember.
4, 5, 6, 7. No.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Then go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll ask it now. So, all right, let's say YouTube for you, it ends, you get canceled, okay, whatever, for some reason. You probably head back to the classroom though, right? You think
Yes.
you would? Okay.
Yes.
If you go back in the classroom, if you were to, what is something you know immediately you would do different than you had done in your career before?
Um, Probably a lot.
Sure.
I would say I'd probably do even more to get to know my students, I think, than I did before. Like I
I'm
always
bad
wanted
at
to jump
that.
into the yeah, I always wanted to jump right into the content because there's so much, but
Yeah,
really I think a lot of that's overrated. And so maybe, yeah, like spend a lot less time on certain content because I know because like, I would spend I like to teach about World War One as well, so I would spend probably too much time on World War One, stuff like that, and so like
better
have more.
pacing, better
What's that?
pacing. You feel like you would change your pacing,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
know?
always a struggle. Even like pacing for the year, but even like during the day, like I never after 12 years, I still didn't get the hang of fitting everything into 45 minutes or an hour and a half. It's just
Sure.
especially with when one class the students learn a little bit more slowly, and so you're kind of trying to balance that with it. Then there's this class over here. They're super far ahead. They're bored because yeah. It was always a challenge. So figuring out that dilemma of pacing and yeah,
Cool. I don't know if you remember, like, remember in the around Christmas time, you were one of my guests on the holiday stream I had, and I had a couple
yeah.
teachers on there. One of them was a friend of mine I was a teacher with, and he's now a principal. And
Oh, nice. Yeah.
he said something interesting because I asked him on that stream, which was, he hires new teachers. And I said, what's the most important thing you're looking for in a new hire? And not one word was said about historical knowledge or honestly even like teaching pedagogy. It was, can you connect with kids?
Right.
So that's the number one thing he looks for in hiring a new teacher is, can you connect with kids? And anyway, I say that like I'm not teaching anymore, like would I make more connections? But every year I try to, I want to be better at that, is make more of those connections. And it's hard
I can
because, like
already
you
tell
said,
you
you have to
do
get
though.
in everything. How do you get in everything? Like
If
all the
you
stuff you got to do.
Yeah, like you're pretty in tune with your community on YouTube, so I would assume you're pretty in tune with your community of students. And that's the thing, like you can tell, like um, you could probably quickly tell there, like on YouTube or any social media video platform, people can easily call out inauth- inauthenticity. I can't
Yep,
say the
yep.
word.
Inauthenticity. Yeah.
Inauthenticity.
They
Hey,
do it on all social media. Kids do it. They could pick it up instantly.
yeah, you got to be authentic. That's what. And so that's the thing. Like, if you were to take a history class from me, like you would, and you had already watched my videos, you'd be walking in and it's like, oh yeah, this is the same guy. Saying, and I assume that with you. And so, like, just being yourself and not trying to like put up a front. But also, I think the key part is just listening, constantly listening to the kids because they have so much they actually have a lot of wisdom already. We don't give them enough credit. I know it's cliche to say, "Oh, I learned just as much from you as you learned from me," but it's true. It really is true. Um, yeah, we're getting all sentimental now, I
I
guess. But
know. Well, I bet there's an element of, you still have an element of missing a little bit of that, right?
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Like some people will say, after they left, if they're not in the classroom currently, there's that, like,
I'm
element. So
I'm actually kind of trying to work with my local university to hopefully they'll let me teach at least a class for like
ooh,
temporarily. Yeah, I'm
for
wish
that
my
reason,
husband
does she want to teach, or you're like, I need the money? I don't know.
no, it's not for the money.
Yeah, it's just miss
Yeah,
teaching.
I just miss teaching. Isaac, thank you. Amtrak. What's your opinion on Amtrak? I did not
The
expect that
trains,
question. Yeah, the train.
man, I'd love to see more investment in trains. Like,
Me too.
I would
Yeah.
love to, like,
Have you
over in
ridden
Utah.
Amtrak?
No, I don't think so.
I have. I've done the one
From
from
where?
Kansas to Chicago,
Of
and
course, I
I
hop on
enjoyed
that
it.
stuff like in Europe and stuff, and every time I do it, I'm like, why don't we have this in our country? Like, this
No
was so
kidding.
nice to get from this place to this place. And I know there's all the we have the geographical issues, but I would love one from where I live to down to Vegas to Southern California, and I can hop on it and chill and relax. But
I know part of the Inflation Reduction Act funding was set aside for expansion of Amtrak and upgrades and maintenance. So that is promising. And they just completed the first high-speed rail in Florida. Was it Florida? Yes. And then there's one coming in California as well. So that, yeah, that's exciting. I want to like high-speed rail really looks exciting. I don't know.
I just wonder from the business perspective, what
Oh, it's
is
expensive.
it financially viable? Is there any
Yeah.
reason to do that over flying or driving your car? That's the problem. I think a lot of why it hasn't replaced cars in cities for the most part is it's still not as efficient, even close to having your own vehicle.
Well,
That's why.
yeah, in most cases, I say that
Yeah,
there's are exceptions. Like I think that actually there's a pretty good case based on my limited research that between the Metroplex, so Dallas Fort Worth, and Houston, like considering the fact that airports can be a nightmare for a lot of people, myself included. I do not like flying mostly because of dealing with security and like check in, check out, and all the getting on the plane on the small tube and 30,000 feet in the air, yada yada. Whereas it could be just about the same amount of time just to hop on a high speed train between you know uh, Dallas and Houston as a high speed rail if they ever were to build it. But like you said, it would cost I think at least, I mean, we're talking tens of billions of dollars minimum, plus eminent domain, getting the necessary land. It's all privately owned
and
between
who wants to
those two
build that
cities.
for nonprofit? Like nobody. Who has
Yeah.
the investment capabilities?
Oh, this is a good question, Christopher. Thank you. What videos do each of you believe has been your best work in your respective YouTube careers thus far? Well, I mean, for you, it's a little bit different, but
Yeah,
like
I
your
can
original
think of
stuff.
both. I'll try to think of something for original and potentially like a reaction video. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I still think my Oregon Trail video, my the Iraq War video I made, I was proud of. The Generations video I just released recently, I think turned out pretty groovy. I don't know.
Yeah,
As far as like, oh, helping, oh, best work. Yeah, yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's my
just
final
yeah, your best
answer.
quality work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I do like my video essay. It's short. It, no matter what like original content I gonna make, I don't think I'm not gonna be a long content guy. Like I just don't think it's gonna be in my thing under 10 minutes. But I think I just it was about vocational schools. It's just
Oh,
titled yeah, it's about the vocational schools. I just like because it's something I can get a little more passionate about. And it's a little more personal. So the
yeah.
thesis of the short video there was just that a fix that we can have for that's a win-win-win across the board is investing in vocational high schools, and that it'll appeal to a different type of student that will help them and will help teachers, it will help administrators. So I think I just titled it like here's how to fix public education. But like I was proud of that because it was something that like came from my personal experiences, and it was good with that. Oh, that's one of the
It is?
shorts. There's a bunch. I cut it up into tons of shorts, but
Oh.
there's like a full normal version somewhere.
Oh, okay.
There it is. I saw it. That one.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know about this. How did I miss this one?
Because the algorithm doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I am in algorithm hell right now. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nothing is getting promoted at all. So I appreciate all the people that are coming in, with that. But
Subscribe to Mr. Terry.
yeah, thanks. I am in algorithm hell, and I'm racking my brain now about what kind of the future should be and things like that. But like, yeah, like this was cool. I was very proud of it, and it doesn't get very many views, but like I thought it was fun. I also had an editor that helped me a little bit with this, and I also did some of my own. And I look at now it's cringe. The audio sucks, and a lot of the other stuff sucks, but like it's like so I was very proud of this.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out later.
Yeah, it's 7 minutes, it's just
That's too
kind of
long.
fun.
Sorry, I'm not gonna check it out now.
I know. Even then, like,
I'm
but
kidding.
man, but that took hours and hours and hours to do, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
You guys that do this stuff, I also don't like editing and those kind of things. So that's kind of a problem for me too. I don't like that.
Yeah, that's probably what I like the most, to be honest, is the editing, especially
You
when I shoot on location. For some reason, I like that even
you
more.
like that editing. By
Yeah.
the way, that's something I would love to get into. Like what they'll see this probably in a few months or whatever. Like doing the on-site stuff that we did together a couple months ago. Like I would love to do more of that. I'd love to get on location and do more. I have so many ideas that I would love to do. Then
Get in trouble by the Mormon church.
yes, we had the Mormon Gestapo stop us, and
I'm so sorry again that happened. I didn't mean
no,
for
that was like no, that's like part of the experience of being like a journalist on the ground. We gotta
Yeah.
like you gotta be told by some people, and I don't know if you need to sneak that in somewhere. Did you at least get some of the can we keep a clip like keeping it running while they're saying, hey, you can't film over here, you know?
Yeah, I have something up my sleeve for that.
Okay. See, I think that kind of stuff is fun. Unfortunately, where I live too, like in Utah, there's a limited amount of things I can cover because we're in the middle of nowhere. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
did
what
some like
sucks.
travel vlog stuff of kind of the Four Corners area. Like I went with my brother and found some really off the beaten path ruins of Anasazi stuff, and like that's all really cool. So I would I would love to do more of that, the
Awesome.
original stuff.
Well, when Netflix gives us a call, you're gonna be
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
join us.
The other
Uh,
one too is potential again more original stuff. Like throwing the idea of podcasting possibly, and like I loved the format of just like us a couple weeks ago of just bringing a few people on of like people with historical backgrounds talking about current events. I think that's another thing I think of like I could take a lot of pride in of getting involved in that. So
that was the
anyway.
first podcast I ever did. Was that idea? We called it what did we call it? It was me and Robert from the channel reading through history, and he's not doesn't really post videos anymore, but yeah, that's what we did. Oh, it was called Context, and that's what we
Ah,
did. We were just
perfect.
whatever was in the news, and then we just tied it back to
The
something the
one
past.
I've messed around with, like I've called it History Live, which is like going through the news of his new historical findings of like, hey, in the last few weeks, this thing
Yeah,
was discovered and it's changing might change our perception of this. And that's kind of fun. I'd love
yeah,
to do something like that, more too. But anyway,
absolutely.
I
Okay.
ideas, but no time for all this. It always
Oh,
comes
of
down to,
course. There's never enough
gosh, I have
time.
a million ideas. If anyone wants to help, Jav, you producers, all of that stuff, if you want to get a project, get in touch with me.
All right, I'll
Anyway,
go ahead and ask you this. Speaking of, this is a related question.
okay.
If you were to write a book, what would that book be about?
Ooh, that's so good. So we're probably maybe talking about like new findings or something, or just
No,
a
anything.
summary of something.
Doesn't even have to be history related. Come on now.
I honestly think it'd be teaching related.
Huh.
I think it would be, yeah, teaching related. Everything with history, there's so many things that someone's already doing, that people have done. But I think teaching, maybe something about teaching in this era, where I think we're at a kind of a crossroads of how teaching is changing. Because at least I feel like it's changed a lot, even from 10 years ago to now. And
Especially with
teaching in
artificial
this,
intelligence, right?
yeah, teaching in this era that is COVID, AI, social media explosion, like this era, I feel like teaching in that would be something I think would be interesting, and that'd be fun to talk about.
All right. Well,
Cool.
that's something else you have to do now.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing, man. I don't know how many conferences you probably went to as a teacher. That was a speaker was a former teacher, ended up writing a book, and then they stopped teaching and just sell their book.
Well, yeah, but I doubt these days. Like, there's a lot of competition. That's the problem because now
That's the problem.
everybody's
I guess
publishing.
in a way you can do that, but I mean, like, I have the new this is the new idea about how
Yeah,
to teach. There's a countless amount of people that have
Yeah, like
that.
teach like a pirate. That guy.
Yes, exactly. Or like, okay, it's one thing to go and make like your awesome books about Supreme Court, but like, no, I have this new revolutionary thing
Gonna
that I'm
change
doing.
how students learn
And to
forever.
all those writers and stuff they do, I said, well, then why'd you get out of teaching?
No kidding.
You have
Yeah.
the answers, apparently. Why are you in teaching? Why'd you leave?
Well, that's just like yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of those gurus that how to grow your YouTube channel, how to like get rich quick.
Uh,
Like there's even on TikTok, there's a lot of teenagers like saying, "This is how I'm a millionaire with my Amazon affiliate links." Like people are falling
no,
for this crap.
no, you're not. Okay. All right, my turn.
Yes,
Okay. Was there ever a time you considered going into administration? Like going to be a principal or anything? Was ever something you considered?
it is. I didn't want to do it though. I had multiple colleagues approach me saying that they thought I would be, I guess, good at being a principal or something, or a counselor even. Now, counselor, more strongly considered than being a principal because,
I think I would do that too if I had
yeah,
to for some reason.
I just don't want to deal with all the. I
Yeah.
mean, not just the
Drama.
paperwork and everything, the legal stuff, but the parents can be a little bit overwhelming, depending on the district, I guess. But especially the fact that generally parents are much more about extracurriculars and sports in particular. Like that's all they care about. Now, obviously, the pandemic kind of changed that a little bit, but it's kind of returned mostly to the how it was before in terms of like parents don't give a crap what's as far as what goes on in the classroom.
Okay.
Mostly, I know there's some fringe parents that are
They
like,
just want a
"Oh,
good grade. They want,
burn some books, ban some books," but no, yeah, like they
want a good
care about the
grade.
sports.
Yeah. Well,
They care about the grades only if it affects the sports or extracurricular. I mean, so yeah, that's ultimately what I think. And then they work so much. I liked having my summers.
Ugh.
I mean, you
Especially a
put
high
in
school principal. Especially a
yeah.
high school principal.
A lot of people don't understand that during the school year, your average teacher doesn't put in a 40-hour work week. They put in more like a 55 to 60-hour work week because especially if they are a sponsor of extracurricular or a coach, like and the grading, all the stuff they bring home, they don't just stay there from 8 o'clock to 3 p.m. They are there early. They stay late. It just blows my mind how ignorant of people are, like what teachers actually do. And so those summers are literally like what prevents the entire career like from collapsing, I think. Because imagine like if they
You've
didn't
got to
have
rewind.
this
Yeah.
time just to like take a break from them.
Well, and a lot of people don't know that as teachers do a lot of work in the summer. So
That
even
too.
if you're not into extracurriculars, this is when you're like recertifying, your credentials, you're going to conventions if you need to. But some of us, again, I've every summer I've always been busy because coaching. I have soccer camp, and I got to do basketball camps and all that stuff. And yeah, it definitely adds up. So I hope people understand. So people going into administration, usually a few reasons. There's some administration, like people have gone into administration, and this is the one I hate when it happens. They were bad teachers, and I don't necessarily mean you have to be a good teacher to be a principal, but like they wanted to get out of teaching. Like they're like, oh, I didn't like this, so I'm going to
Yeah.
go in and now I'm going to instruct the teachers about how to teach.
Ugh.
So there's that. That's the worst. Some do it, and I totally understand this for the money. Like I know plenty of teachers that have been teaching a few years, and they're like, my wife, we need more money than what you're making, so you're gonna have to go into administration. A lot of them go into it for that reason, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's like kind of sad in a way.
It
Like
is sad.
there should be something about being an administrator for being an administrator's sake that should be attractive to people. And the money is one thing, but I wouldn't trade the money for the time they spend. Because again, if you're at high school, you're every night you're good. You have to go supervise the tennis team. Like you have to go watch their match and
Yeah.
do all that. So, but I don't know. That's in that little video essay I did say how we could really help administrators too by changing the structure of schools so they could be used in whatever their best capacities are and not just being the toilet that has to absorb all the problems of the school, which is most of what an administrator has to do.
That's well put. Yeah. That sums it up.
Anyway,
Ooh.
all right. Are we in ninth inning now?
Yeah, I'm gonna catch up on the super chats if you
Yeah.
don't mind. If
Yeah, you had a bunch.
thank you to everyone for these. I think I missed some, but this is a good one though. How about from Jimmy? Quote: "It is said that power corrupts, but actually, it's more true that I can't read apparently. Let me start over. Quote: "It is said that power corrupts, but actually it's more true that power attracts the corruptible. The sane are usually attracted by other things than power." David Brin apparently said that. And thoughts on that quote?
Said that power corrupts, but actually it's more true that power attracts the corruptible.
That's pretty cynical as well. Kind
Yeah.
of what we were talking about earlier about the con
Yeah,
artists.
about you mean grifters that like once you come into power, you realize one thing maybe that you don't have as much power as you think you do, so you have to do things that corrupt your values. I
Yeah,
feel maybe this is cynical or naive, I should say. I would think most people that go into powerful positions, whether it's like government positions, probably go in with really good intentions, but then to stay in the game or whatever, you you may find yourself veering away. I don't know.
that's what I was going to say. Exactly what you just said. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I do think that the vast majority of human beings are good people. They want to do what's best for the majority of people. They truly like when you. I mean, think about the fact that in many countries, it's actually not that lucrative to become a politician, especially if you're working for city council, like city government, county, state. Here in Kansas, you're barely getting paid anything. Um, it's not like it's a ladder for everybody either. For the vast majority of people that are in politics, they're truly doing it for public service. Now, when we're talking about like the federal level, like yeah, you could see a little bit of that going on in terms like think of the whole premise of the show House of Cards. I mean, it's always like everybody constantly um, thinking about whatever I do, is this going to help me and hurt them, or hurt me or help them? That's all they're thinking about,
Sure.
instead of thinking about, oh, what's going to help everyone. So I understand where this.
And maybe something you come in to realize, like as a teacher, I definitely had to change my idea that I'm not going to make friends with everyone. Not everyone's going to like me. I'm not
Mhm.
going to win every battle. Maybe politicians do that eventually. You're not going to be able to make everyone happy, that you just accept that and then just go from there.
Well put. Yeah, I love this. My son's a chemist and wants to be on Jeopardy. My daughter is a business student and excels at Wheel of Fortune. Which do you think is into history? Can't say it on the count of three. One, two, three. The son.
Daughter.
Oh,
Nope. No, it's a STEM kid. That's a STEM kid. No, not gonna like it.
yeah. So let us know which one's right.
Yeah, I
Five
want
gig.
to know now.
Paul. Yeah,
I
I
feel
just
like there's
say
the line between the STEM kids and the other kids.
I've just noticed that a lot of history dorks like myself are really into Jeopardy. That's just what I've. That's where my bias comes. Let's see if they comment. Don't see it
Although,
yet.
I didn't think about that. I was thinking more about the one kid being into chemistry and one being into business rather than the one liking Jeopardy versus the one liking Wheel of Fortune. But I feel like if you took away what those kids' interests are in their background, it was just Jeopardy versus Wheel of Fortune, that it would definitely be the Jeopardy kid.
Yeah. See his uh Ricky Ticky Bobby. Who needs 50 Shades of Grey when you have Mr. Beat presents presidential elections in American history?
Well, I would
It's
rather people were
great.
reading or watching those videos than 50 Shades of Grey. By the way, parents, do you know what's in that stuff that's in the libraries that you complain about?
Oh, no
What's in
kidding.
50 Shades of Grey?
All right. I think it's my turn. So we're gonna go
Okay.
with This is a question I originally had. I'm just going to throw this at you just to trip you out a little bit.
Okay.
But what if I asked you a question that was very specific to a very specific traumatic experience that you had in your life, and then you just like broke down crying in the middle of of the live show? That this all
Okay.
I was thinking when I was trying to come up with questions. I was like, what if I accidentally this could happen? Because like we when we first planned for this show, like or with everybody I've done. This is like the 12th episode now, I think, or 13th, lucky 13 for you. But it's always like, oh, you can ask me whatever you want. Maybe don't get too personal with the questions,
Sure.
but I haven't had any issues yet, but I was thinking like, what if I like tapped into some deep, dark thing of your past and like you just all of a sudden like have this like, oh, you start bawling in the middle of the street.
So
Anyway,
your
that's not my
question, do you
question.
think there's a question that you could ask me that would make me do that?
Oh, maybe that should be the question.
Or
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the question then?
Well, I don't see that's the thing though. I don't want to like even if there is something like that, I don't want to,
Yeah.
touch it.
No,
So I'm going to pivot and say
hypothetically, yeah.
I'm going to say I'm just going to ask you because I've never talked to you about this.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on universal basic income? What do you know
Mm.
about it, and are you for it or?
Give me a quick crash course because I may be thinking of something different. But
Yeah. So it's the idea that because of automation and the fact that artificial intelligence, you know, machine learning, all this stuff, there is a legit fear that there's going to be a shortage of jobs. So this has
sure.
kind of started the whole discussion again in recent years that maybe there should just be a universal basic income. Everybody gets a check or deposit from the government to cover basic necessities. So not a whole lot. A lot of people
Okay.
propose $1,000 a month for every citizen. Uh, yeah, Andrew Yang famously made this a major pillar of his
Yang
campaign.
gang. Yep.
Yeah, when he ran in 2020. Yeah, and that's what first got
You
me
you
into
were a
it.
Yang guy, right?
Yeah,
Were you a Yang? You were a Yang guy.
I liked him. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway.
well now he's all about ending gerrymandering and ranked choice voting, which I'm also for. But regardless, yeah, so like I think a lot of people also argue, well, you could maybe get rid of the minimum wage and have this in its place. So with all that out there,
Okay.
what do you
I
think?
get it. Okay. So this would be like a minimum wage, but would be a lot better at taking care of the needs of people.
Yeah, because it has nothing
Yeah.
to do with whether or not you actually have a
Okay.
quote
But
job.
so I guess I would say then that that could happen if we come to the point you're talking about automation where we're not even really necessary as workers anymore. If we come to that, I think what's not even close to being a reality or something we should probably consider right now. But if we're on this trajectory towards what's it called, the singularity or whatever, where we just become like completely intertwined with all of this, then yeah, I guess so. Like I would hope it's not like this right now, but all this automation is to not the goal of reducing jobs, but giving workers more time to live their lives. So it's about having more leisure time and that sort of thing. So we don't have to be working 40 hours plus a week. That the goal is to minimize that. And if we can do that while still being able to take care of our basic needs, if we can get to a point where we can do that, then great. I guess so. But right now, I guess the fear is that we're eliminating jobs. So the manufacturer, the owner, or whatever, is just doing this so they could cut costs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's sad. That's sad. But I don't know if there are companies out there that are actually like, hey, we're automating, but guess what? We're going to keep all of you here. We're actually going to work 4 hours a day instead of eight
That's
hours a day.
yeah.
I would love that. Like, I'm going to cross my fingers that the goal for us, we don't live to so we're not living to work, you know what I mean? But we're so far from that, and I don't know what it's going to take to push industry towards that fact of trying to just make it easier on workers rather than just cutting the bottom dollar. So so my idea, I guess, to summarize then would be that that's a great idea, but there's a lot of stuff that would have to happen first that we're not even close to. But does that answer the question?
Yeah, it's always it's it's especially interesting to get your thoughts considering you don't really know too much about it.
Yeah,
So, because that kind of gets me into the mindset, I think that a big concern about it is the fact that it would cost a lot of money for governments. That's
sure.
a huge amount when
Wait,
you total it up.
do people work in this model?
People can still work. Yeah, like the assumption.
Okay.
Actually, they've already done small scale UBI, universal basic income, in certain cities around the world.
Okay.
And almost every single time they do it, they've found that people work about the same amount, maybe a little bit less. But if they work a little bit less, often they pursue starting their own business
Mm,
or starting something that they've always wanted to do but never had the time or independence to do so. And a lot of these people spend the money on straight up just necessities like food,
sure.
clothing, paying the rent, healthcare costs. So it's not like people are just going to be like sitting on their couches and getting, I mean, they pretty much just live their lives normally, just a little bit less stress.
It would
So,
probably depend on the person, right? There's some people that are gonna be
oh,
like,
yeah.
"Hey, I'm fine with all I have. I don't have to do any I mean, I don't have to do anything, and I just get my basic needs met, needs met. I can sit here." But like you were saying, there's gonna be people like, "Oh, this frees me to do up a whole bunch of other things."
Right.
So probably have both effects that way. Now, who's trying this? Is anyone
It's been tried in a few American cities. I know the CEO, I think his name is Sam Altman, I think, the CEO of Open, the company that does Chat GPT, OpenAI, I think.
okay?
He is a big advocate for this because actually a lot of businesses, a lot of corporate interests might be for this too, because and people that lean to the right politically, because you're giving more freedom to the individual and you're also giving more, like, basically empowering the consumer. So they're going to spend their money more if they have it. We are a
Sure.
consumer driven demand
Yeah.
economy, like demand based, not supply based as much as we think we are. And so, yeah, like I think it could be one of those things that eventually it becomes a nonpartisan thing. I do hear also, like, I think the most legit criticism is the fact that it could cause inflation. But the more I think about it, though, it's like, yeah, but that's assuming everyone spends their money on the exact same things. Like, think back during the pandemic when there was inflation. A lot of that inflation was directly tied to the shipment of a lot of goods and like goods that we shipped from overseas. Remember, there was like a backup of like, and so um, that
Like at
was,
the Suez Canal with the boat getting stuck?
oh yeah, stuff like that. I mean, but that was more widespread. Whereas like
Sure.
that's not typically how inflation. We're like we have a market economy mostly, so you have competing goods that are. It's like you can choose to. I know there's very few corporations that really run everything now, but yeah, you can still choose whether or not to spend your money at Amazon versus Walmart or versus Target or Aldi or whatever. So I just think that also with specific products, like, okay, I got extra money, I'm going to buy the more expensive type of shampoo this time. Does that mean that the price of all shampoo will go up? No, maybe a certain brand.
Okay.
So I just don't think, I haven't heard like too many compelling arguments lately that about the saying that it would cost too much inflation. But
Where
you should check
yeah.
it out, man.
Where does the money come from though? It's from the private sector, like you're saying?
That's the thing too. Like, so when Andrew Yang ran on this platform, he said that there would have to be he didn't, not a sales tax, but what Europe does with, oh gosh, what kind of tax is that called? It's blanking on the name of it. It's a tax on every time a good is produced and it's transferred to another company, like up the chain, it's
Okay.
taxed. Value added
Okay.
tax. That's it. Sorry, my
Okay.
brain is starting to get tired. A value added tax would have to be. We don't have that in the United States at all right now. So that is the other concern, that it would be that would
That
contribute
would be
to
hated
inflation.
here.
What's that?
That would be hated here by a lot of people.
Well, although, I mean, you could. you could maybe you could lower income tax. I don't know. You could,
But you'd have to trade off somewhere else, right?
yeah.
Because
If you make trade offs other places, that's what I'm saying. And like, I don't know.
interesting. I'll look into that.
We're at 3 hours though, so I just realized that. So let's
Yeah. No, it's fine. We just got
try
one more question each.
you only have one more?
No, never mind. I did have two, but if we need to do
Okay.
one, that's fine. I'm good to stay two, whatever. But
Okay. I'll
uh,
just give a quick answer.
okay, well, you have a quick one. Okay, here it is. Thoughts on charter schools?
Oh, yeah, I used to be all about them, but I just think what ends up happening with charter schools is, and a lot of what actually shaped my change in opinion
Hmm.
is this book, Savage Inequalities, which actually came out in like the early '90s, but it
Hmm.
holds up kind of scarily, like frighteningly well. You just get good parents that are going to get their kids in the charter schools. A lot of it, a lot of these resources get redirected, and it ends up being like de facto private schools, is what I've seen. I mean, in theory, they're good because you're allowing for some competition, but it's a zero sum game. You have limited funding, and so there's going to be losers in this. And so the kids that don't get into the charter schools, like plus all the parents that don't even bother to try to get their kids into charter schools, that's a problem. You're leaving a lot of kids behind.
Sure.
And we're supposed to not leave any child behind. No child left behind. Sorry, this is a throwback there.
I don't know if these kids know about that, but that was a backfire.
Yeah, that law was controversial. What are your thoughts on charter schools?
Yeah, I kind of maybe started kind of the way you thought, but I've become more cynical about it too. As a teacher, still, I get a lot of kids. I get more kids probably coming back from charter schools than going to them now.
Oh wow.
They're coming back, and a lot of it is for a few different reasons. They'd be like, "Oh, the teachers aren't as good," or like sometimes the school folded because it had horrible problems. But like, yeah, it was like they have had some kind of model where it was like, it depends on the charter. Every charter usually a charter usually exists because they want to do something radical or different. Like
Yeah.
this
In
one, like
theory, that's
we're
great.
just not gonna have grades, or like this one is the kids will choose whatever they want to do, and like they have all these things, and like they're coming back and be like, yeah, that kind of backfired. Like, um,
Hmm.
my kid was 15 years old and he didn't know what's in his own best interest for his education. So like he needed more guidance or something, or so I don't know if it's like I don't love the idea of public money going to that. I feel like public money should go to more like public schools, and whatever we're hoping the problem is that charter schools are fixing, I would like us to fix that in our public schools. Whatever it
Yeah.
is it because of is it a special needs thing? Because I've had some some that have done that, like people I know that are like, my child is autistic, and it's working better if they go to this school. And that's like some of the success stories I've seen, if they could go to this other little small school for whatever reason. But like I would want to make sure we are fixing those problems here. The classes, are they going to charters because the classes are too big in a public school? Well, let's fix that. Let's do that. Let's fix that. I can tell you, teachers don't really want to teach at charters. There's so much unknown. First off, most charters are not going to be supportive of unions.
Yeah.
They can, so you don't have those kind of protections from you sometimes. Sometimes the pay can be better. A lot of times it's worse. A lot of teachers I know that have taught in them, they don't want to stay there. They go there and they're like, there's turnover with administration all the time. They'll
Hmm.
be like, my administrator has no idea about education. They came from the business world and they don't know how to do education. They might know how to manage the budget, but like they're terrible for education. So I just don't think it's something as good. In that book that you have, does it talk about um how charter schools can also like create inequality? Because it said something about inequality.
Well, it's primarily about just the fact that there is inequality among districts, and
Sure.
rooted in the fact that property taxes are the main source of funding for
Okay.
most districts in this country. In addition to state funding, which again is finite,
Sure.
um, and then other, like a wealthier school district has bond issues, and the residents are more willing there often to to say, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we'll pay extra, and so yeah, like it happens also like you have a vicious cycle for those poorer districts where kids leave the district because things aren't good there, but then because there's less new kids coming in, it gets even worse. And
Mhm.
then the opposite with the wealthier districts where more kids come in, more money, and it's just like it's a
Yeah.
virtuous cycle. And then so yeah, charter schools is really like a side issue in the book.
I've heard that this argument now that it's quietly happening, but the purpose of charter schools being to resegregate schools,
Yeah.
to
Did you know
resegregate it.
that schools are more segregated now than they were in the 60s?
Is it because of that? Is it because there's all these other options?
I think that's a big reason. Yeah, I think we should go to France's model of just you the kids, or what, maybe it wasn't France, it's some other country where the money just goes to the family and they get to choose to go wherever they want.
I mean,
Um
is that vouchers? Is that different than
it's
what you see
vouchers,
vouchers
except
doing?
it's like right now we only have vouchers for those wanting to go to private schools. So this would be for public money. This would be, or I'm sorry, it's all public money, but they get it's within the system. You can't go to a private school. It has to be
Okay.
a public school, is what
Okay.
the condition would be. I think that would help a lot because, like, the funding, um, the fact that it's so dramatically different from district to district. I think you're a suburban district, aren't you? So it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, like
Yep.
I'll never forget driving from the inner city as a substitute teacher to go coach in the wealthiest school district in Kansas City every day. Like it was
Seeing the
jarring.
differences.
Actually, I turned that into a video. Like I went back and if you ever, hey, you should react to this video on your channel.
Okay.
My video
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Which one?
systemic racism video.
Oh, is that? Oh, I bet the comment section's fun in that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as bad as you'd think, but it's worse with my great replacement theory video or
Oh, I bet
anti-Semitism
that was
video.
fantastic.
Yeah. Oof, that's pretty bad.
That's the one where that's the type of one you're gonna get emails and like threats, right? Or like you're a traitor, or like you're a
Race traitor. I get
race
called that
traitor.
a lot. Yeah.
The last thing back to the charter school thing, I also want to differentiate because I literally just talked about one of my things I'm proud of was also advocating for vocational high schools, which I
That's
don't
a
want it to
magnet
seem.
school.
Yeah, I don't want it to seem like that's a like hypocritical kind of thing because I still feel like they're charter schools are not like vocational necessarily the vocational high schools. So anyway, but that's the type of choice I see that's still publicly funded and well supervised and has standards. And anyway, so
And it's easy to get into. Like if you're yeah, if you really want to go to a vocational high school, you should have that opportunity. I mean,
yeah,
it's,
it's great. My whole thing about that is just it's about giving more opportunities, more time is spent. You know, like we're doing the minimum of other things outside of vocations that are you're still going to do your regular core class. You're still going to have all those kind of things, but more time is going to be focused on experimenting and getting uh, used to different type of potential vocations. You're still going to have extracurricular activities or all that. It's just a time flip a little bit. We're going to, you know, how
yeah.
we have like our electives and then we have our big core classes. I kind of want to flip that in an essence there, but
Some
anyway.
kids could really use that so bad.
That's the thing I was saying is like, hey, watch that same kid that's acting out in your language arts class
Yep.
because they don't give a crap about that. But then go ahead and send them down to some vocational class. They're probably kicking butt and their behavior is better and they have intrinsic value. They came out of high school with a good idea of what they want to do or have learned what they don't want to do. And that's great.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Jack L, the Patreon supporter here, it says, if you could dine with any historical figure, who would it be? Not counting me.
nice. So for me, you know, I it might sound cliche, but like ancient philosophers, I would love to have a conversation about them with them, but talk about modern times and the way we think about things right now, and put that in their head, and to see if they could figure that out. If they could conceptualize modern thought with their thought. And then I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I always think about modern politicians, like Abraham
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I still think it would be him though, just because I think he would be so fascinating to talk with. But
Sure.
Thomas Jefferson too. Like, I think George Washington, even though he's my favorite president, he would probably not be as exciting, I think, as Thomas Jefferson to talk to.
Yep.
It's a weird thing to say, I guess.
I'd like to talk with complicated people or something,
Yeah.
It's like, can you justify your whole platform, but then you also are doing these, and like to hear the arguments,
Yeah. Thank you, LJ1 and Jim. Like your PFP there. And finally, I think we made it through the super chat. So, thoughts on, this is their question. Thoughts on teaching as ultimate learning by doing profession. How much of your skills came from learning educational theory? How much from failing until learned how to do on your own? I think I already know the answer to what you're going to
say. I can tell you as a teacher, a lot, I don't want to say most of what you learned about educational theory went out the window when you got into a classroom.
Yep.
And you learned that there's a lot of realistic stuff that you just didn't, you have to experience it.
Yeah. It's one of those, really you have to learn on the job. And really, I didn't feel even comfortable teaching until I was at least in my 4th year, maybe 5th year. Like I felt like
that's super common. Well, that's that threshold we were saying earlier about how that like 3-year mark.
Yeah.
Usually make or break it for teachers.
Yeah. That's the
they either think they can keep doing it, or they're like, I'm done. You either saw improvement or you didn't.
Yeah. All right. We're up to the last question. I know. Thank you for letting me.
This is fun.
Talk to you this long. I know it's.
Could we talk about tomorrow night?
Oh yeah. Before we ask each other our last questions here, just it's looking like this is finally going to happen. We're going to play a game of Risk over on Mr. Terry's channel. If you want to check it out tomorrow night, same time, I guess, right? 7 p.m. Central.
Yeah, I think we were going to shoot for that. I hope that was okay. So yeah, if you guys, I hope everyone can come out. Anyone that's watching this, we've been working on this. It's been hard to get schedules matched up, but clear back in December on a stream, I was doing, actually Mr. Beat was there earlier, but you didn't see the part after. I had a second session, and on that was Blogging Through History, Drew Durnall, and the Fat Electrician. And we were talking about how, man, we need to do a Risk game. And finally got around to being like, all right, let's put an online Risk game going together. So I can't confirm. All I can confirm right now, because I still need hard things, we're going to do it no matter what, even if it just starts with the 3 of us. I'm hoping for more. But Risk with Chris from Vlogging Through History. We got Mr. Beat, who's never played.
Yeah.
So go easy on him, okay, if he hasn't there. But I don't want to speak for the other YouTubers, but there's a bunch of other YouTubers that have been invited. I'm just waiting for confirmations. So I don't know exactly how. I don't want to speak for anybody, but tomorrow night, around the same time. I did tell any of the other people want to stream on their own channels. That's fantastic. It's not necessarily an exclusive thing for me. I just thought it would be fun to do that, talk history, and just have some fun. So,
all right.
Anyway,
well, the final question then. Okay. I'll go ahead, I guess.
Good.
What makes a good historical movie?
Say it again. What about what makes a good one?
Yeah, what makes a good historical movie? Like, you could say your favorite historical movies as examples.
Okay, people aren't going to like this, but there has to be an entertaining element. I would say for most historical topics that get made into movies, if you truly stuck to the history, it would be a pretty bad movie. I'm sorry, but that's the thing. They're not documentaries. They're meant to entertain. Now, if it is, as long as it's not history altering, like it's a total like alternate history thing, I am very much fine with most of the history movies. But I think okay, so what makes a good one? Obviously it's got to be about telling the stories, I guess, in a way that's interesting, and you have to make it. I don't know if I want to say relatable is the right answer, but something where people could put themselves in the situation so they could feel the dilemma, if it's a movie about a dilemma or the danger of the situation. You know,
Mhm.
for the same reason we love scary movies. We want to be scared for some stupid reason, but like you've got to be able to put the person in the situation. So as far as like good ones I've seen, a couple movies I thought did a real good with that. I thought 1917 did a great job of capturing the tenseness of that, because the way it was shot with the cinematography
Yeah, the
made you
one
feel
continuous
like you were
shot.
there. The one shot thing, like it made you
Yeah.
feel like you're there, and it threw curveballs at you all the time,
What's
where all of a sudden the story changed because that's how things are. And like I thought that did a great job. Um, Man, we got blessed with World War I movies finally. I thought the remake of All Quiet on the Western Front was phenomenal. The one on Netflix, the one they did that
Oh, yeah.
cleaned up at the Oscars. And one thing I like about that one is it made sure the whole All Quiet on the Western Front like idea was to show how awful war is at a time when Eric Marque, when he wrote that, it was still that era coming out of the 1900s where war is this good, glorious thing, and
Mhm.
World War I changed that mentality because there was nothing good about being in World War I and fighting in World War I. You didn't have the emotional cavalry charges where the enemies just drove away. It's like, no, you sat in a trench waiting to get blown up. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
uh making things realistic in that way and not glorifying those things, but making them realistic. So those are some examples.
Yeah,
You?
I mean, Oppenheimer really blew me away. Sorry, pun intended, I guess. But like
I did
I
like Oppenheimer.
yeah, he also builds that tension so well, especially like, the moments leading up to when they first were going to test it, like, and uh the fact that I just thought it captured the anxiety to a point where you're just sitting there like gripping whatever you're sitting in, watching. I don't see how, unless you're not paying attention, everybody's gripping. It's literally gripping whatever they're, because like the music too, and just building up. I'm glad you mentioned 1917 because that's one of my
Do you like that?
favorite historical
Yeah,
movies.
top 5 probably now for me.
Yeah, just because like I'll never forget them first going over the top, and this is something I taught for many years as well, like trying to describe no man's land and like yeah, like
Your friend blows up right next to you.
yeah.
You're
Well,
just talking to him.
I guess All Quiet on the Western Front does that pretty well too, but I always think about the one that came out in the what was it, late '70s. That's the one I saw when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's the one I showed that for years in my class with,
Yeah. Oh, you got to show and like
John
history
Boy,
teachers.
like,
That's
the
true of
actor.
some.
Yeah,
What are
yeah,
the
that
ones
was
that you always show that you have? Like I have to show my students this now.
I used to, now there's not enough time.
There isn't much time, but I always made Selma. I played Selma the last few years I taught. I used to like a couple of years I played Fury because it was just so dark, and I was like, I was tired of the
That's
kids like glorifying
the
that war.
Brad Pitt tank ones. Is that the
Yeah.
Brad Pitt tank one? I saw it for the first time probably just a few months ago. That was great.
Oh yeah. I think
I didn't know what to expect. It was great.
I really do firmly believe that a big reason why we're not going to fall to fascism again this time around is because of like these movies that made it so that just your average person who's not into history is familiar with World War II, the Holocaust, and all these horrible things that made it so that the world almost ended. And yeah, like I think even Oppenheimer, two movies like that, where the Cold War is harder to kind of convey the message of how serious it was because yeah, fortunately, no other nukes were dropped on people after
Yeah,
Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But
sure.
just to kind of really get people into that mindset of like the fear of it could happen at any moment. And yeah, I just, that fear kind of keeps us alive. So,
Yeah.
fear.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I
Okay.
don't know. I mean, I know it's cynical to say. It's like, look how quickly we went from World War II to World War One. Shouldn't have World War One been the war to end all wars? Like, how on earth could we convince a society to go back to something so awful? And
But it's
there's
also like I
okay,
do think we learned our lessons collectively after World War II in so many ways. Like to see where Germany is today, Japan.
sure,
I know we're having issues still with Russia, but it pales in comparison to what was
sure.
going on in the 50s and 60s, and
Sure.
yeah,
That's one of my favorite questions to ask my kids. It's the nuclear question. Are the existence of nukes making the world safer? And it
yeah,
usually
oh yeah.
provides a great dilemma. Is that why we haven't had the war, or is it because we've learned our lessons, or is mutually assured destruction what's keeping us
We're gonna
apart?
find out when one accidentally detonates, aren't we?
Oh gosh, oh gosh.
Bound to happen at some point.
Okay. Well, is
Your
this?
turn.
I have one left on mine. Is this it? Is this the last
This
one?
is it.
All right, this one's super simple though, but all right, if you do go back, if you did go back into teaching, the school though, there's no social studies positions, okay, anything related to social studies, but you're going to teach. What would you like to teach?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah. So it can't be social studies at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I know you history, economics, politics, nope, can't do that.
I'm kind of torn on this. I've thought about it. When I was a substitute teacher, I got a little glimpse of different subjects.
Mhm.
So I maybe PE,
Okay,
just because or weightlifting or something. 'Cause that's what I do as a hobby.
sure.
But also like I've just grown over the years, just a greater appreciation of science, and so especially like biology, that was something I continue to be fast. Like when I watch videos, I was telling you earlier, I don't watch a whole lot of history videos just because I kind of get stale. Like this is my world all
That
the
makes
time. Why
sense.
would I want to? So when I'm like, in my free time, yeah, I'm watching. If it's educational, it's probably a science video, especially biology or like space astrophysics, that stuff. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I'm an astronomy nerd. I love
Oh, I didn't know that.
astronomy. I,
Yeah.
uh,
Nice.
I I don't the only thing I've done on my channel, I've like reacted to space history, but I've always been like a astronomy nerd. I love telescopes. I love space stuff. I love all that. I think that would be kind of fun. I'm certified in PE as well.
Oh,
I did
nice.
get that. So, and that was also because I thought one day I'd be doing be a head coach, and that would really help me get a job. So,
Oh,
in geography, I'm licensed in geography, but I've never taught geography. That was my minor in college, and then I got
me
the
too.
P endorsement. I got while I was teaching, so because I wanted just to rack up a few endorsements, and the state had a nice little like summer program, 2 summers, and you can just take the classes and get certified. So, but that would be me. I would be. I think science is cool, but I wouldn't be able to teach it. I don't
Oh, I'd be
know.
intimidated for sure.
I mean,
Somebody actually mentioned music. That makes sense. I
yeah,
still play.
I was wondering, yeah, if you're a
I
musician, but would
I
you wanna
still play.
teach it though? Like, teach
That's the
music
thing. It's
theory and
different.
stuff?
Like I just mess around with
Yeah.
I play piano, guitar, and I occasionally still break out the trumpet, although I haven't for a while. But yeah, like it's just me. Like I'm totally not classically trained, even though I took 8 years of piano lessons, but it's like I'm not like I couldn't tell you what key a song is in, for example. So
Me, I like to play
all
drums.
vibes.
I like to play drums, so
Oh,
I
nice.
think we
Yeah.
talked about that.
So
You and
many.
me and Chris, like, we need to get
Uh,
we almost got a virtual band.
Almost. We have too many. Like you'd be
Go
surprised how
for it.
many other history tubers play musical instruments.
Yep.
Like a bunch of us do. So I guess just one of these days we'll have to get together and jam.
We need an awesome singer or something, like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's my weakness is I'm not very good at singing, but and now I get to make a Joe Biden song, which I'm excited
Ooh.
because I have songs about every single president, and now that Joe Biden's announced he's not in it anymore, I'm like, oh, okay. So, and I started writing lyrics to the song a long time ago, and I lost them. I couldn't find them. I was so upset, but maybe that's good because maybe I need a fresh start.
I get, They Might Be Giants vibes from you.
Oh yeah,
Are
that's
they an
totally.
influence? Would you feel like they're
Yeah.
an influence?
No, they're not.
Really?
But for so many years, like when I first started posting our stuff on MySpace, 2004, whenever that was,
Heck
that
yeah,
was the first comments I got. Like, oh, you guys sound like They Might Be Giants, and I was like, wait, who are?
maybe
Oh, is that the band?
you guys had similar
Style.
probably influences, yeah, from the
Yeah,
same time.
probably. But the thing is, they were around. I mean, they've been around since the
I
early
mean,
'80s, and
sure. Yeah.
I just never really. The only song I knew about them was Constantinople, which of course is a fun history song as
You gotta
well.
like
But
James K. Polk, right? Do you like that song?
I didn't know about it until
Oh,
after
okay.
I had already released my own James Polk
Yeah.
song. People kept saying, "Oh, this is like They Might Be Giants." I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
So yeah, it's always interesting, like these parallel
I do like that song though.
things.
With James,
Yeah,
my favorite might be Mesopotamians. Because I love how they do the history ones. But the Mesopotamians, you know that song? They Might Be Giants.
I don't think so. No.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. I love that one.
Okay, I'll check it out.
So
Eh,
everyone knows Constantinople. But yeah, the James K. Polk one's good, but not a lot of people know about the other ones. But
Here's one of my
Mesopotamia,
earliest subscribers. Hello, and they were there when my first videos I posted on this channel were
Jay Jonah.
my President Music videos, and I believe this person commented on those. If you go back and see, isn't that cool how on YouTube you can
Oh,
literally go and back and watch a video from 17 years ago and still like, holy crap, you can see the first video I ever posted still on YouTube is still up there. My Electric Needle Room page. It's crazy.
just
All
to
right.
see that.
On that note, it's been way
Okay.
too long. It's been 3.5 hours. So I want to thank you for the time, and
Thank you.
everybody watching, listening. Please be sure to check out Mr. Terry History on YouTube. Is there anything else you'd like to promote, Mr. Terry?
Yeah, come out to the Risk game tomorrow night.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we'll plan on 8 p.m. Eastern. You come check that out on mine. I did say if anyone else wanted to stream, that's fine, but at least we'll be on mine. Come hang out my Discord server. Just look for the Mr. Terry History Discord server. I'm very active there. A lot of people like that. Goes back to I try to make connections that way too, to the viewers. So there's that. Not a huge social. I'm on Twitter. I don't have the cool hot takes, unfortunately, like Mr. Beat does now. The hot takes, but I'm on there, Mr. Terry History. Gaming, Mr. Terry Gaming on YouTube.
Oh, that's
I like
right.
to do there. If I'm not doing like history gaming stuff, because I'll do like history gaming things on my history channel, Civilization, whatever. But if I'm playing something else, I might go over there. So other than that, that's it. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, everyone who's listening to our voices, thanks for being here this last 3.5 hours, and have a wonderful rest of the day, week, month, year, decade, century, and beyond. Goodbye.